Chapter 29-22. Dmo Xian frowned. His body's instincts had already driven him to bend down following the young lady's strength. The young lady's pink lips pressed against his. The warm touch was accompanied by a young lady's unique sweet fragrance. Like a warm current, it flowed directly into the depths of his soul. Dmo Xian's body shook violently. Just as he was about to clasp the delicate softness in his arms, turning from guest to host. The young lady moved her lips away, her slender fingers grabbed the man's robe, her face was filled with smiles. "This is your reward." The young lady's smile was a little devilish, her curved eyes revealed a sense of craftiness and quick-wittedness. Dmo Xian's pupils flickered, he raised his hand to hold the wrist in front of his chest, which was so slender that if he used a little strength, he would be able to break it. He lowered his eyes, his fine black hair scattered on his handsome face. His thin lips rose, as though he was smiling. "Reward. My dear Xian is so awesome, of course I have to give you a reward." Yiqing Luo was still circling his neck, smiling as she nodded. "Awesome." He repeated again, his thin lips deepened, revealing his clean white teeth. No matter how she looked, there was a sense of danger. As expected. The next moment, he had already bent down, his thin lips on her earlobe. His voice was low and husky, extremely charming. "Which aspect are you referring to?" "Awesome." Yiqing Luo's face flushed red. She buried her head on his shoulder, not wanting to look at him. This man really couldn't be flirted. This flirting, his flirting skills were top-notch. She admitted defeat. Dmo Xian gave a low laugh, lowering his eyes to stare at the person in his arms. The young lady's soft touch, and the sweet fragrance, were all scorching his body. This reaction. As a man, he naturally understood. Dmo Xian's deep eyes narrowed, averted his gaze, and as though to change the topic, he took the initiative to mention what happened earlier. Those two used the interspatial scroll to escape. Yiqing Luo, who was still unable to control the rising temperature on her face, arched her head, and snorted, not really understanding what Dmo Xian said. They came prepared. Their only goal was to kill Yuyin and stop him from betraying the Venerable. Dmo Xian raised his hand and pinched Yiqing Luo's cheeks. They used a spatial scroll to carry out spatial teleportation and came to this stretch of forest, attempting to extract all of Serene Yin's spiritual body and consciousness, and bring it back to the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing raised his head. Space scroll. The space scroll is a very risky teleportation technique. Firstly, it requires a space scroll as a magic tool. Secondly, he needed a medium to teleport. As long as these 2 points are met, you can travel through any space at will. Dmo Xian explained, they used the space scroll to travel freely in the Miao tribe. This was also the reason why Dmo Xian was unable to capture the cold ghost maiden alive. Those two people, while Dmo Xian was sending Yiqing Luo off towards the direction of Yuyin. Then, he activated the space scroll and escaped. Yiqing Luo was already used to the various kinds of strange armaments which appeared in the hands of those Yu. What she was more curious about was, they also wanted to extract Serene Yin's mental power. The Venerable that they mentioned, had spent so much effort to nurture such a strong mental power chess piece like Serene Yin, so naturally he wouldn't be willing to part with this power. Dmo Xian nodded. No wonder Yu Han and Yu Nu would bring Serene Yin's spiritual body to the Miao tribe. Now that they have lost Serene Yin, they should be looking for the next one, to replace Serene Yin. Chapter 29-23. I hope so. Yiqing Luo caught his fingers and smiled. If that honorable expert didn't let the Dark Nether Palace or the other Nether spirits come to find trouble, then they could settle the goo poison in their bodies with peace of mind. What she was most worried about was, Miao Xi and Miao Yi found a way to cure Dmo Xian. The people from the palace of gloomy darkness would take the opportunity to disturb them. However, from the looks of it, the secluded darkness palace did not dare to touch her for the time being. The incident today was caused by Yuen manipulating Miao Rongrong and stirring up trouble in the Miao tribe. Apart from the intentions on the surface. In reality, it was also a test. To test the relationship between Yiqing Luo and Miao Yi. He was also probing if Dmo Xian had really been poisoned by the parasite. Today, due to a freak combination of factors, Dmo Xian had helped her. Moreover, he said that he was not controlled by any goo worm. Yu Ji would definitely tell this news to the person behind the scenes of the Dark Nether Palace and that sovereign. The reason why they only knew how to play tricks in the dark was simple. Firstly, it was because they were afraid of being discovered by the peace messengers of the upper realm. Secondly, it was because he feared Dmo Xian. As long as Dmo Xian showed no signs of being poisoned, those people would definitely not dare to act rashly. In Yiqing Luo's heart, she could roughly deduce what the secluded palace or that revered would do in the future. Suddenly, she thought of something and raised her head. He raised his head. Coincidentally, the man ignored her because she was deep in thought for a long time and was about to bend down to tease her. The girl suddenly raised her head. Her eyes met his handsome face. Yiqing Luo's warm pink lips imprinted on Dmo Xian's lower jaw. You threw yourself at me. Dmo Xian raised his eyebrows, the corners of his lips curled upwards in delight. Yiqing Luo immediately moved her lips away. That misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Dmo Xian's gaze deepened. Did you misunderstand that you took the initiative to throw yourself into my arms, or misunderstood that you wanted to forcefully kiss me, or misunderstood that you wanted to pounce on me? Yiqing Luo, she clenched her fists in shame. How could she be so coincidental? Just about to kiss him. Moreover, listening to Dmo Xian's words. On the contrary, she felt that the accident just now was deliberately planned by him. It was all for the sake of teasing her. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath. She couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with Dmo Xian about this so-called misunderstanding. I want to ask you, do you already know that you have been poisoned by the venomous worm? The corner of Dmo Xian's lips curled up into a teasing smile as he slightly restrained himself. His eyes flashed, and his handsome face also became indifferent. Did Miao Ji tell you? Other than Miao Ji, Yiqing Luo couldn't think of anyone else. Dmo Xian nodded. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips, her nostrils were filled with the man's scent, as though it had seeped into her skin, wrapping around her everything. Because I know, so I'm certain that I'm your woman. Yiqing Luo raised her head, her charming eyes staring at his face. This is the reason why you took action for me. No wonder, right from the start, she felt that the current Dmo Xian was somewhat different. He clearly didn't remember her. But it happened again and again, just like before. He protected her, comforted her, and said incomparably touching words of love. Because he knew he was poisoned by the centrifugal goo. He knew that he had forgotten, that he had loved her deeply before he was poisoned by the venomous worm. It was guilt. Or responsibility. Driving him to change. Dmo Xian and the young lady's four eyes met. Chapter 29-24. If I don't feel anything, even if I knew you were once my woman, I wouldn't believe it so easily. The man's deep magnetic voice carried a hint of laughter. His slender fingers caressed her cheek. His fingers were gentle, with a slight ticklish feeling, caressing her skin. Although I don't remember you, but I know you are my woman. That warm touch made Yiqing Luo's eyelashes tremble slightly. She raised her eyes, meeting the man's deep as the sea eyes. That gaze became heavier and heavier. Like a whirlpool, absorbing her soul. Yiqing Luo's lips finally revealed a smile, both her hands tightly wrapped around the man's waist. You will be able to remember me soon, soon. Dmo Xian's large palm covered the young lady's head as he gently rubbed, listening to the young lady's agitated and excited voice. So soft that his heart seemed to be numb. His brows became extremely gentle. The corners of his lips curled up into a slight smile. Suddenly, this smile froze on the corners of his lips. That handsome as cast face instantly turned pale, almost to the point of being deathly pale. Even on his forehead, there were bulging green veins. That pair of originally warm peach blossom eyes was now flickering with a bloodthirsty red. The man's body stiffened, attracted Yiqing Luo's attention. She immediately retreated from Dmo Xian's embrace, as she raised her head to look at him. She saw Dmo Xian's face, that green and white face. Big beads of cold sweat rolled down along his forehead. Ah Xian! Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo immediately held on to Dmo Xian in a fluster. What's wrong with you? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Is it the centrifugal parasite acting up? The man opened his mouth, but that pale lips did not spit out a single word. He forcefully waved away Yiqing Luo's support. That pair of slender hands, at this moment, the joints were all green and white. How could Yiqing Luo let this Dmo Xian leave alone? She immediately jogged up. Ah Xian, I'll help you to look for Miao Ji, to look for Yi. They haven't Gu Xiang. Looking at Dmo Xian's painful look, Yiqing Luo's heart was in a tearing pain. Before Yiqing Luo could catch up to Dmo Xian, that tall and slender figure that was trying its best to leave suddenly swayed and fell straight down. Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo's footwork moved as she dashed over swiftly. Just as Dmo Xian's head was about to fall onto the ground, he firmly supported him. The man's well-built body fell into her arms just like that. His pale face was devoid of blood. His brows were still tightly knitted, and it was obvious that he was not feeling well. Yiqing Luo's fingers trembled as she gently caressed the man's brows. But her hand just touched the man's skin. The man actually let out a painful groan. Her fingers suddenly froze. Looks like his love for you has deepened and caused the separation. Will Gu's backlash. Old man Song's voice came. Let Chi-Chi take Di-Zun to the Saint's yard. Don't touch him for the time being. After a pause, Old man Song reminded, the smell on your body will also cause the centrifugal goo to attack even more violently. Yiqing Luo's delicate body stiffened. Looking at Dmo Xian, whose face was filled with pain and had lost all blood. Her hands were trembling. At this moment, she didn't even have the right to stay by his side, to hold his hand tightly, to give him warmth. Chapter 29-25. Old man Song's words made Yiqing Luo's eyelashes slightly wet. She adjusted her emotions and summoned Chi-Chi from the pet space. When she helped Dmo Xian onto Chi-Chi's back and took a few steps away, Dmo Xian's brows were tightly knitted and the veins on his forehead were protruding. His expression finally showed signs of easing. This made Yiqing Luo's heart feel an indescribable feeling. Dmo Xian's reaction towards her was bigger. It showed how much Dmo Xian loved her. Under the circumstances where he had forgotten about her, he still loved her so much. The more he loved her, the stronger the backlash. She had never doubted Dmo Xian's feelings for her. She didn't want to use this method to prove his feelings for her. Looking at Dmo Xian's painful look, but she was unable to stay by his side, to endure this pain with him. Her heart was aching more and more. Sacred Maiden Institute. Yiqing Luo had been here once and remembered the approximate location of the Sacred Maiden Institute. One man and one tiger rushed to the room where Dmo Xian rested when the centrifugal worm acted up. Chi carefully placed Dmo Xian on the bed. She was just about to leave to look for someone in the Sacred Maiden Pavilion. When she pushed the door open, she saw Miao Ji and Miao Yi rushing over. When Miao Ji saw Yiqing Luo, the grave expression on her face loosened. "I sensed someone entering the Sacred Maiden Institute and guessed that you should be back. Luckily it's really you. Quickly come and take a look, Xian He. The centrifugal worm is backfiring again." Yiqing Luo saw Miao Ji and immediately went up, holding Miao Ji's hand as she spoke in an anxious tone. "Don't be anxious." Miao Ji took a look at Miao Yi. Miao Yi stretched out her hand and held Yiqing Luo's hand. "Qing Luo, we've been rummaging around the Sacred Maiden Pavilion for a long time and found some clues, don't be anxious." Yiqing Luo's breath froze as she suddenly held Miao Yi's hand. "There's some clues. Can it cure the worm?" "Don't be anxious, let Aunt take a look at the Overlord's condition first." Miao Yi could feel Yiqing Luo's body trembling. She sighed softly as she stretched out her arm and wrapped it around Yiqing Luo's shoulder. To be able to make the usually calm and composed Yiqing Luo flustered in the face of danger, flustered to such a state. Probably in this world, only the Overlord could make Yiqing Luo behave like this. Yiqing Luo tried hard to calm herself down. She took a deep breath and shuddered as she moved away. Miao Ji quickly walked past Yiqing Luo and walked to the bedside. She lifted Dmo Xian's wrist and pushed his sleeve aside. Sure enough, the centrifugal goo has gone berserk. Miao Ji's tone was heavy. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath nervously as her body turned soft. She plucked up her courage and turned to look at him. What she saw almost caused her to cry out. On Dmo Xian's wrist, that bloodline which was like a blood vessel, had now become as thick as a vine. Moreover, it was slowly spreading along his wrist to his shoulder. It was a vine. It looked extremely terrifying. It was as if it would explode at any moment. What's going on? He was fine before. When Yiqing Luo saw that completely deformed blood-red vine, the taut string in her brain snapped. Chapter 29-26. Miao Ji put down the ignited tranquilizer incense and raised her eyes to look at Yiqing Luo as she apologized. "Miss Yi, I've acted on my own, I'm sorry." Yiqing Luo was stunned as her eyes looked at Miao Ji in a daze. She knew what Miao Ji meant. Because Dmo Xian had thought deeply about the relationship between them. He had also confirmed the fact that she was his woman. Therefore, for that feeling, that impulse of loving her from the depths of his soul, Dmo Xian did not try to escape or find excuses to deceive himself or others. Instead, he directly accepted his feelings towards Yiqing Luo. Naturally, he relaxed his feelings towards Yiqing Luo. Their love was so deep that it caused the centrifugal goo to go berserk. "Qing Luo, and she is also." Miao Yi saw Yiqing Luo not speaking for a long time and immediately opened her mouth, wanting to speak up for Miao Ji. Coincidentally, Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she spoke with a calm expression. "I know, you can't bear to see me and Xian quarrel, and can't bear to see Xian leave me because of the centrifugal worm." She pursed her lips and said in a hoarse voice, "I don't mean to blame you." Miao Ji's expression was unprecedentedly heavy. "Even if you don't blame me, I still feel very sorry, because this isn't the only thing I'm sorry for." Looking at Miao Ji's grave expression, Yiqing Luo's fingers trembled slightly. She seemed to have guessed what Miao Ji wanted to say. His face, which had been pretending to be calm, now looked a little pale. "Miss Yi." Miao Ji could tell that Yiqing Luo had already guessed what she was going to say next. She also didn't want to say it at this time. However, there was no way to drag it out any longer. "My time in the Nirvana realm is up. In the end, Miaoji still spoke her mind. According to the rules of the Miao tribe, after the new saintess inherits the position, I will immediately ascend to the upper realm. Staying here for one more day is already my limit. Yi Qing Luo's tightly curled fingers suddenly opened up. His heart also fiercely thumped. As expected, it was this news. Ever since Miao Yi became the saintess, she knew that Miaoji did not have much time left in the Nirvana realm. He just didn't expect it to be so fast. I promised you that I would do my best to help the Overlord cure the goo. I really want to help the Overlord personally, but Miaoji looked at Yi Qing Luo's expression and felt even more guilty. She endured the guilt and continued, if Lord Dizun was only poisoned by one kind of parasite, I would be able to cure Lord Dizun within today. However, Lord Dizun has been poisoned by 2 types of venomous insects. Moreover, the venomous techniques of these 2 venomous insects are performed using the ancient venomous techniques of our ancestors. Moreover, they are 2 types of venomous insects that are incompatible with each other. It will be very troublesome to remove them. Not to mention today, even if you give me another 2 days, I'm afraid I can't guarantee that I can resolve these 2 goo at the same time. These words, to Yi Qing Luo, were extremely cruel. But if he were to hide all these and not let Yi Qing Luo know, this was even more cruel to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo had the right to know everything. What you mean is, the parasite in his body. You have no way. Yi Qing Luo heard Miaoji's words for a long time before she opened her mouth bitterly. Her voice was a little hoarse, and he could vaguely hear that it was a little nasal. Chapter 29-27. What if one of the venom is first cured, then the second venom? Yi Qing Luo recalled what Miaoji said earlier. Miaoji's expression was grave. What I want to tell you is this. These 2 kinds of venom that counter each other, when planted on the same host, there are only 2 ways to cure the venom. Cure 2 venom at the same time, everyone will be happy. The second way is to cure the love venom first, then the centrifugal force venom. She raised her hand and pointed at the blood-red patch on Dmo Xian's wrist, which looked like a vine. Perhaps it's because his feelings and love towards you are too deep, so it allowed the love worm in his body to absorb the nourishment from his love, and grew very quickly. If you want to cure one venom separately, then you can only cure the love venom first. Love venom. Yi Qing Luo muttered these 2 words as she frowned. You can also cure the love venom first. Why are you hesitating? Is it because there's still some danger? You should be clear about the nurturing of venom. Every venom, from the larvae, will develop the habit of fighting with other venom to survive. Love venom and centrifugal force venom are the same. Moreover, these are 2 kinds of venom that counter each other. Now the Overlord is safe and sound. Half of the reason is because of the Overlord's power. The other half reason is these 2 venom, mutually defending each other's territory, accumulating power and waiting for a chance. This is also why the Overlord would be controlled by the venom from time to time. One moment he was poisoned by the love venom and had deep feelings for you, the next moment the centrifugal force venom would act up. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted when she heard that, as her body slumped down powerlessly. Although he knew that Yi Qing Luo should have already guessed the consequences of curing one of the venom. But Miaoji still explained in detail, once the love venom is cured, the centrifugal force venom in the Overlord's body will completely control the Overlord. Without the obstruction of the love venom, the centrifugal force venom's influence on the Overlord will far exceed what it is now. For example, he is not controlled by the centrifugal force venom, other than forgetting you, but the love from his soul towards you will still make him close to you. But if only the centrifugal force venom is left to control him, there's a possibility that not only will he forget you, he will also kill you personally. By the time Miaoji finished her last sentence, her expression had turned serious. Her eyes were burning as she looked straight into Yi Qing Luo's eyes. there's still the worst possibility. The Overlord can't bear to kill you and will go against the centrifugal worm, causing the centrifugal worm to go berserk and directly swallow the Overlord, turning the Overlord into a puppet. Puppet, Yiqing Luo's body stiffened suddenly. Although Lord Dizun is not an ordinary person and his body is also different from ordinary people, his reaction to being poisoned by the goo is also different from ordinary people. Meow, she looked at her fixedly. But I estimate that the Overlord only has a 20% chance of surviving the backlash of the venomous centrifugal goo. No, this method is too risky. Yiqing Luo shook her head without hesitation. 20% was too low. Moreover, it was just an estimate. Meow, she had an expression of, I knew you wouldn't agree, so, this is also the reason why I can't make up my mind to help the Overlord get rid of the curse before I ascend to the upper realm. Other than that, is there no other way? Yiqing Luo asked hoarsely. Chapter 29-28. If you feel that this method is too risky, then you can only let Yi search the Saint's Pavilion alone for a few more days to find a way to cure the two kinds of insect poisons at the same time. It is too risky to resolve the love goo first. Miao Yi, who had been silent all this while, held on to Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Qing Luo, I promise you that even if my aunt ascends to the upper realm, I alone will definitely help the Overlord find a way to cure the goo, absolutely. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes drooped, her tone was filled with unspeakable fear. It's not that I don't believe you, but I'm worried, there's not enough time. The two types of venom in Dmo Xian's body switched between different modes from time to time. As time dragged on, she was unable to predict how much damage it would cause to Dmo Xian's body. This was one of the reasons. Secondly, she had already stayed in the Northern Wave continent for a long time. In the West continent, Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing were still waiting for them to bring people back to suppress the poison from the upper realm for Long Yunzhan. Jun Qinghui's pearl could only sustain Long Yunzhan for 3 months. 3 months had passed. Long Yunzhan would die because of the venomous insects of the upper realm. Or would he continue to be influenced by the upper realm's goo worms and attack his own brothers? All of this was unknown. There were still people waiting for her to return to the West continent. Both sides were people who were very important to her. She didn't want to see anything happen to either side. The 3 people in the room were silent, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Suddenly, a hoarse and low voice sounded out indifferently. Do it, release the love parasite. This voice caused the 3 of them to freeze for a moment. Yiqing Luo was the first to regain her senses as she pounced to the bedside and reached out to hold Dmo Xian's hand. Ah Xian, you're awake. Her fingers had just touched Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's breathing suddenly turned heavy. His handsome face had turned pale. However, Dmo Xian did not reveal it. Instead, he held her little hand. A noble and elegant smile bloomed from his thin lips. No matter how Dmo Xian tried to conceal it, Yiqing Luo could tell that her touch on him had once again caused the centrifugal force goo in his body to become agitated. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as she withdrew her hand from Dmo Xian's hand and took a few steps back. They didn't even dare to approach him. Yiqing Luo. Dmo Xian frowned slightly. His voice was slightly weak due to the agitation of the centrifugal worm. Come here. Yiqing Luo didn't move. Don't force yourself. I don't want to see you in so much pain. I told you to come here, so come here. Dmo Xian lifted his eyelids and his long eyelashes formed a silhouette above his eye sockets, making that pair of peach blossom eyes of his, added some lustrous luster. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly and shook her head stubbornly with a pale face. Dmo Xian's brows creased even more tightly. He moved his hand as if he wanted to get up. But it also seemed to involve something else, causing his brows to furrow into several wrinkles. He lay back on the bed. Yiqing Luo took a few steps forward, her eyes filled with anxiety. Ah, Xian, what's wrong? Where does it hurt? She couldn't imagine. How painful was the erosion and agitation of the centrifugal goo. That was why Dmo Xian, who had always been unperturbed, revealed such an expression. One must know that Dmo Xian was once bleeding all over, and yet his expression didn't change, pretending that nothing had happened, and flirted with her. Chapter 29-29. Even before he was poisoned. When he came back from the upper realm, he had internal injuries and his power was greatly reduced. He didn't show any signs of it. But now, because of the pain, his face turned pale. How painful was it to make Dmo Xian's expression change? The minute Yi Qing Luo got near, she abruptly halted her footsteps. Don't worry, I'm here. Miao Yi grabbed Yi Qing Luo's hand. Before the centrifugal worm stabilizes, don't get close to him. Yi Qing Luo's petite body stiffened by the bedside. She blinked hard, suppressing the sourness in her eyes as she stared intently at Dmo Xian. Miao Ji saw that Dmo Xian's expression was getting worse. She frowned and turned back to look at Yi Qing Luo. I know the Overlord doesn't like to be touched by others, but under the current situation, I can only choose to be disrespectful to the Overlord. If the Overlord is angry, please help me plead for leniency. Saying that, Miao Ji didn't wait for Yi Qing Luo's reply. She directly raised her finger and bit it hard. Following that, she raised Dmo Xian's arm and pressed the blood that was oozing out from her fingertip onto that squirming blood-colored vine. Bright red blood instantly spread on Dmo Xian's arm. Miao Ji muttered something softly. A ray of light brushed past. That drop of blood merged into the blood-colored vine. Miao Ji retracted her hand and wiped the sweat off her forehead. Sacred Lady's blood can temporarily suppress the centrifugal worm for a moment. After the whole house is filled with the poison, if the centrifugal worm is still unable to be stabilized, I have no other way. After Miao Ji's drop of blood merged into Dmo Xian's arm, Dmo Xian's tightly knitted brows indeed eased up a little. Aunt Miao, is there really no other way? If you can stay in Nirvana realm for a few more days, will you be able to think of a way? Yi Qing Luo's hand pressed against her heart. Her heart felt like it was clenched together, hurting terribly. Miao Ji weakly closed her eyes. Staying for a day is the most lenient. If I stay any longer, I'm worried. Heavenly punishment will befall upon the Miao tribe. This was, after all, the Miao tribe's ancestral rule. If she didn't abide by this rule, if the heavenly punishment was only for her, it would be easy to deal with it. What he was afraid of was, the punishment from the heavens would befall on the Miao people. Just one goo poison and one goo poison antidote. Leaning against the headboard, the man who had calmed down spoke again. That cold voice was impossible to ignore. She could no longer ignore what he had said before. No. Yi Qing Luo's voice was tense, her fingers clenched into a fist. This is too risky, your body is originally in the upper third. Her voice paused, and she stopped herself from saying anything. She bit her lower lip hard. Even if she didn't finish her sentence. Dmo Xian understood as well. He was afraid that this girl knew that his body had suffered a serious internal injury when he was in the upper realm. He raised his eyelids and looked at the young girl who was standing by the bed. Her eyes were filled with worry, but she didn't dare to approach him. The girl stood there, clenching her fists tightly. Dmo Xian's brows creased as he recalled that not too long ago in the forest, because she was worried about old man Tsang, her palm had been imprinted with numerous blood scars. Now, she was abusing herself again. Didn't she know how to protect her own hand? A girl's hand was very important. Chapter 29-30. Dmo Xian listened to her slightly sobbing voice and only felt a dense stinging pain assaulting his heart. Immediately following that was the agitation of the centrifugal force goo. He clenched his fists as he endured the discomfort. His gaze met the young lady's slightly reddened eyes and those wet lashes. That trembling feeling in his chest grew stronger. He closed his deep peach blossom eyes, and when he opened them again, it was already piercingly cold. He didn't look at the young lady but looked sideways at Miao Ji calmly. After removing the love goo, what will happen to me? And you guys, what do you intend to do? If you successfully remove the love goo, you will immediately be controlled by the centrifugal force goo. Miao Ji subconsciously blurted out when she was stared at by Dmo Xian, but there is also a possibility that you still retain your own consciousness. But if you are unable to withstand against the centrifugal force goo, then there is a huge possibility that you will be devoured by the centrifugal force goo. Dmo Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes as he went into deep thoughts. Miao Ji looked at Dmo Xian's perfectly handsome side profile. The most important thing is, I only have the time to help you remove the love goo, and following that, the removal of the centrifugal force goo will be controlled by Yi. Which meant the most difficult part was for Miao Yi to remove the goo. Yi Qing Luo's body tensed up. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Miao Yi. Miao Yi's innate talent was right there. But after all, Miao Yi's experience in dealing with goo worms was not as good as Miao Ji. Moreover, no matter if it was the centrifugal force goo or the love goo, they were all ancient goo skills passed down by the Miao tribe. Innate talent. Could it really replace experience? Miao Yi. The man suddenly opened his mouth. This name made Miao Yi's emotions tensed up as she instinctively straightened her back and responded in a serious manner. Here. Do you have confidence? Dmo Xian looked at Miao Yi calmly as his eyes were deep but without any pressure. Miao Yi was stunned as she turned her gaze towards Miao Ji. Dmo Xian's attitude was already very obvious. Everything depended on the thoughts of the two of them. Miao Ji pondered for a moment and nodded slightly. Ever since I was rummaging through the voodoo manuals about love voodoo and centrifugal voodoo in the Sanus Pavilion, I have been estimating the inference of this method. In fact, from the bottom of my heart, I agree with this method. As she said that, she looked at Yi Qing Luo, who was standing stiffly by the side. Her eyes had already turned red, as though she was suppressing her emotions. Miao Ji sighed softly. We can't guarantee that we will be able to find such a book in the Sanus Pavilion. After all, in the past 4 years, I have not seen any similar ancient books in the Sanus Pavilion. Although this method of curing the goo is very dangerous. But, with Lord Dizun's physique and willpower, perhaps this method is faster and safer. Miao Ji had thought it through before she said what she said. She had to admit that she did have some selfish motives. After all, she was about to ascend to the upper realm. Her only relative remained in the Miao tribe. Although from the looks of it now, Yi Qing Luo and Miao Yi's relationship was rather close. However, it was inevitable that there would be other changes due to certain reasons in the future. Before she ascended, she would try her best to cure the overlord of the goo. If she succeeded, then she would be able to leave the Nirvana realm with peace of mind. She was gambling. Gambling on the overlord's power. Gambling on the overlord's mysteriousness and nobility. Gambling on the overlord absolutely not being controlled by a small centrifugal voodoo. Most importantly. Chapter 29-31. I feel I can do it. Miao Yi's voice rang, filled with infinite determination. She walked towards Yi Qing Luo, as her arms wrapped around Yi Qing Luo's trembling shoulders, speaking word by word. I also want to do something for you, for the overlord. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly, as she lowered her head. Her silence seemed to be rejecting Miao Yi. and also seemed to be rejecting the risky idea which they suggested. Miao Yi opened her mouth, as she wanted to say something. But looking at Yi Qing Luo's fine hair, that pair of reddened eyes, she shut her mouth, as she sighed, as her hand slid down from Yi Qing Luo's shoulders. Lil Luo, A low husky sexy voice called out, which made Yi Qing Luo's heart tremble. A familiar nickname. That was the nickname which belonged to Dmo Xian alone, called. She raised her head abruptly, as her eyes filled with joy. Following that, at the next moment, her face crashed into a thick embrace. Her nostrils were filled with the familiar sandalwood scent. Her face was scorched by the scorching temperature. She could faintly hear the man's heartbeat from his chest. For a moment, the entire room seemed to have quietened down. Yi Qing Luo was only in a daze for a moment, as she quickly recalled the centrifugal worm in Dmo Xian's body, as she struggled anxiously, trying to move her body away. She was afraid of too much touch. It would only make Dmo Xian more painful. However, before she could move, a voice suddenly rang out. A large palm was pressed against the back of her head. The man's muscular arm encircled her petite body tightly. Ah Xian. Yi Qing Luo spoke in a trembling voice. Being hugged too tightly by the man, she didn't dare to struggle too much, worried that it would cause him discomfort. Lil Luo, be good, listen to me. The man's voice was very deep, as though a melodious incantation, making Yi Qing Luo's head had a feeling of dizziness. He stuck close to her ear. That cold and aloof face, at this moment, was like the melting of the winter snow, covered with warmth. Believe me, and believe them. Yi Qing Luo raised her head from his embrace. What she met was the man's deep peach blossom eyes. His thin lips were frivolous, as his slightly pale handsome face revealed a tinge of wickedness. Yi Qing Luo looked at his face in a daze. The man had already bent his head and kissed her lips. As their lips touched, his voice drifted into her ears. Lil Luo, I don't want to forget you again. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled violently. Her long, curly eyelashes trembled violently a few times. In her enchanting eyes, a watery light slowly spread. The man's lips parted from hers. On his handsome face, there was an extremely indifferent aura. But the way he looked at her was very warm. Just like in the past. However, compared to the past, it lacked that little bit of feeling. I don't want to forget you again. This sentence, in Yi Qing Luo's heart, was like a densely packed large net, enveloping her within. She stared at Dmo Xian's cold face. Sweat was dripping from his forehead. Even if he tried his best to endure it. Knowing Dmo Xian, she could tell. At this moment, Dmo Xian was using all his strength to fight against the centrifugal venom in his body. It was obvious that the closer he was to her, the more he was tempted by her business. The more the centrifugal heart goo would go berserk. But Dmo Xian still used his own warmth to soothe her worries. Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes weakly. The corners of her eyes sparkled. When she opened her eyes again, her pink lips moved, as her hoarse voice spat out a word, all right. In the end, she still chose to compromise. Chapter 29-32. After Yi Qing Luo spat out this word, she speedily stood up straight and left Dmo Xian's embrace. She stepped back. He turned around and straightened his back. His hands were clenched into fists. The young lady's departure made Dmo Xian's heart empty for a moment. However, the unbearable pain in his body lessened a little. His deep peach blossom eyes stared deeply at the girl's slender back. He could see that the girl's delicate body was trembling under her forbearance. He frowned and deliberately kept his voice calm and a little hoarse. There's not much time. Let's start now. The girl's body stiffened for a moment. Several times, his clenched fists unclenched. He seemed to want to turn his head and stop her. But in the next instant, he curled his fingers again. Miao Ji took a look at Yi Qing Luo and then looked at Dmo Xian, as she helplessly sighed. She shook her head and walked to the bedside. Indeed, there isn't much time left. If you don't have any questions, I can start at any time. Dmo Xian didn't say a word, but only raised his eyes and looked at Miao Ji indifferently. Miao Ji understood and nodded. Then let's move to another place first. During the process of curing the curse, we must not allow any accidents or disturbances. As she spoke, she called for Chi-Chi to come over and help. The Saint's yard is not absolutely safe, and the equipment to cure the goo is not complete. Then where is the safest place? Yi Qing Luo heard that and immediately turned around, asking nervously. Miao Ji and Miao Yi carefully helped Dmo Xian onto Chi-Chi's back before answering, let's go to my room first. In Miao Ji's room, there was a secret passage that only the holy maiden of the Miao tribe knew about. It was a secret room used by generations of saintesses of the Miao tribe to research goo worms. Even the elders of the Miao tribe did not know about this secret chamber. Yi Qing Luo could be said to be the first person other than the Miao tribe's saintess who knew about this secret tunnel and had even walked into this secret tunnel. In the secret tunnel, there were all sorts of tools for dispelling goo and making goo. Miao Ji asked Chi-Chi to carry Dmo Xian to the stone bed at the side. Around the stone bed, there were 2 or 3 very thin branches. Above the buds were evenly distributed goo worms that were squirming non-stop. It was black like a grain. These are not harmful goo worms. Miao Ji saw that Yi Qing Luo's gaze was fixated on those few shoots and opened her mouth to explain. These goo worms can strengthen the overlord's willpower, allowing him to maintain his consciousness. Yi Qing Luo's fingers tightened. She didn't know much about the goo poison. He could only pin his hopes on Miao Ji and Miao Yi. Miao Yi was already quickly fiddling with the tools in the secret room. About the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. Miao Yi called out to Miao Ji, "Aunt, that's enough." Miao Ji nodded slightly and walked towards the stone bed. Yi Qing Luo followed closely behind. I don't have much time left. I will do my best to remove the love goo for Lord Dizun within this limited time. Miao Ji glanced sideways at Yi Qing Luo's direction, her eyes looking at her seriously and solemnly. Her voice was unprecedentedly heavy. After the love goo is taken out, Yi will immediately take over and remove the centrifugal goo. Yi Qing Luo's face turned pale. No sound came from her throat. Miao Ji and Miao Yi exchanged glances, knowing that Yi Qing Luo's current feelings were extremely complicated. However, time waits for no man. Chapter 29:33. Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyelids. Under her slightly frowning brows, there wasn't a shred of the usual radiance in her eyes, as it seemed extremely dull. Even though they were separated by a distance. Miao Ji could feel a gust of cold wind from Yi Qing Luo. Miao Ji's throat turned dry, Qing Luo. She opened her mouth to call her name instead of Yi Qing Luo. This also expressed her attitude. You must succeed. Yi Qing Luo slowly moved her lips as she opened her mouth with difficulty. Her voice was hoarse. Miao Ji clenched her fists tightly as she gave her a comforting smile. I will. Yi Qing Luo stood there. Her beautiful face was calm and composed, not a hint of emotion could be seen. Under the illumination of the luminous pearl, under the dazzling light. That face looked a little blurry and couldn't be seen clearly. But Miao Ji and Miao Yi could feel the thick pressure from Yi Qing Luo. You guys can start, don't bother about me, I'll just stay here and watch. Accompany him. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes, which were filled with worry. Qing Luo, you can't stay in the secret tunnel. Miao Zhi shook her head as she looked at her seriously. The love goo's affection target is you, the centrifugal force goo's affection target is also you. If you stay here, it will only cause the goo worm to become agitated. Yi Qing Luo suddenly opened her eyes. The person who was lying on the stone bed, receiving the antidote, was the man she only loved. She couldn't give him warm companionship when he was in pain. Now, when he was antidoting the goo, she couldn't even stay by his side. The love goo has been fed by the Overlord's love towards you, and it has already grown up in his body. If you stay, your scent and presence is still there. There is a possibility that it will speed up the growth of the love goo. Not to mention the reaction of the centrifugal force goo towards you. You must know that the love goo has not moved for so long, allowing the centrifugal force goo to corrode the Overlord's body, allowing the Overlord to maintain the state of the centrifugal force goo. This is to deplete the centrifugal force goo's energy, and annihilate it in one go. Miao Zhi could tell Yi Qing Luo's reluctance as she explained helplessly, moreover, after I successfully remove the love worm from the Overlord's body, the centrifugal force worm will then completely control the Overlord. If you are here, with Lord Dizun's willpower, he might not be able to control the centrifugal force goo, if he sees you and wants to kill you. She paused for a moment, and her voice became serious. Not only will His Majesty fail to remove the curse, but you, and all of us will most likely be killed, by His Majesty. Miao Zhi said the last two words very slowly. But it was also extremely clear. Is that so? She spoke in a hoarse voice. Her tensed body slowly slumped down weakly. She did not say another word. Instead, he turned around and walked toward the door of the secret chamber. Every step he took was like stepping on thorns. The bright light elongated her silhouette. It made her slender figure look extremely lonely. Looking at the figure disappearing at the door, he could feel that desolate and helpless aura. Miao Zhi and Miao Yi looked at each other again and saw determination and seriousness in each other's eyes. They would definitely try their best, helping the Overlord to remove the goo successfully. She walked out of the secret chamber. Yi Qing Luo felt as though all the energy in her body had been sucked out as she leaned against the wall and laid limply on the ground. The wall was icy cold. Chapter 29:34. Her head was leaning against the wall, raised high. Her eyes were tightly shut and her long eyelashes trembled from time to time. Her heart was filled with anxiety, uneasiness and heartache. Lin Mingya had always liked to arrange everything in an orderly manner. But this time, she didn't dare to think about it. The result of failing to cure the venom, her mind was filled with Dmo Xian's peerless face. He smiled at her. His eyes were warm, as if carrying thousands of spring water. Suddenly, something gently tugged at the corner of her clothes. Yi Qing Luo opened her eyes. A furry little head was already in her arms. That pure and flawless head was reflected in Yi Qing Luo's pupils from a close distance. Chi. She spoke in a hoarse voice. The little thing in her arms was Chi, who had turned into a kitten size after carrying Dmo Xian to the stone bed. Chi-Chi's little body curled up in Yi Qing Luo's arms, raised its little head and used its soft pink tongue to gently lick Yi Qing Luo's cheek. Its furry little head rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's face in a flattering manner. The warm touch, made Yi Qing Luo's icy cold body, had a trace of warmth. Master, don't worry about the Overlord, he is so powerful, he will be fine. Chi-Chi's childish voice seemed to have a healing ability. Yi Qing Luo hugged it tightly. Chi rubbed its head again. Chi can feel that the Overlord loves Master, very very much, more than Chi loves Master, so the Overlord will not be willing to part with Master, he will not let anything happen to himself. The childish words slowly soothed Yiqing Luo's restless and worried heart. Qi and Yiqing Luo had a blood pact. Naturally, it could clearly feel the change in its master's emotions. Seeing Yiqing Luo's emotions stabilized, Qi's tone became cheerful. Master must believe in the overlord, just like Qi believes in master. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. There seemed to be some emotion surging in her chest. Her pupils shrank slightly as she stared blankly ahead. She seemed to have thought of something and was immersed in that memory. Believe in Dmo Xian. Believe in the decision he made. She believed that he would not bear to leave her. That was right, the only thing she could do now was to believe, to believe. Qi will always accompany master. Qi saw that Yiqing Luo's eyes had finally regained its spirit and immediately licked Yiqing Luo's cheek. Yiqing Luo carried Qi and gently patted its head. I can't stay in the secret room, it will be contaminated with my scent. She stood up and said, I can't be by Xian's side when he's dealing with the goo, but Qi, you have to protect him for me. Qi's wagging tail immediately stopped. Among my companions, Shiju's strength is insufficient, and his spiritual wisdom has yet to be unlocked. Yan's temperament is irritable, and he gets angry easily. Only you can protect Xian for me. Yiqing Luo gently rubbed its little head. Between you and me, we can sense each other's dangerous aura, so you stay here to watch over Xian. If anything really happens, I can rush over. Qi was convinced, and its two furry little ears drooped down helplessly. Yiqing Luo put down Qi and her vision fell onto the tightly shut door of the secret chamber, staring at it for some time. Chapter 29:35. The blood-red profound phoenix ring looked especially sparkling in her fair hand. Vaguely, one could see that the red jade was flashing with a fiery red glow, as if a phoenix was about to fly away. Master. Qi's eyes widened. This is a gift from Di Zun, this is a token of our love. Yiqing Luo passed the profound phoenix ring to Qi. This is what he gave me when I first met him. Qi did not take it. How can master take off such an important thing? I'm worried about Xian. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and looked at the profound phoenix ring in her palm. Her gaze turned gentle as though she was looking at Dmo Xian through the profound phoenix ring. She pursed her lips and revealed a smile that could not be considered a smile. No one can predict what will happen after the love parasite is taken out. If something unexpected happens, hand the profound phoenix ring to him. As she spoke, she could not help but smile. This is a token of our love. Even if the heart separation goo controls him, he will definitely remember my memories after seeing the profound phoenix ring. This is just a precaution. With the profound phoenix ring, at least, she would be able to understand Dmo Xian's condition at any time. Qi raised her head and stared at Yiqing Luo for a long time. That pair of sparkling tiger eyes blinked. Finally, it pouted and said in a childish voice, Qi will protect Master's profound phoenix ring with my life. It opened its mouth and swallowed the profound phoenix ring that looked like a phoenix spreading its wings. Yiqing Luo rubbed its soft fur. I'll leave Xian to you. After Yiqing Luo left the Sacred Maiden Institute, she directly headed towards the courtyard which the Miao tribe had arranged for Yan Xiaoyi and the others. Her mind was filled with Dmo Xian. He had to find something else to distract himself. Just as Yiqing Luo turned the corner, her figure disappeared for about half an incense's time. In a dark corner more than 10 meters away from the Saintess courtyard, a man in Miao costume walked out. That man's strength was obviously not low. In just a few breaths, the man's figure had already disappeared from the Saintess courtyard. It was as if they had never appeared before. In the northwest of the Miao tribe, there was a dignified and luxurious courtyard. The entire courtyard was extremely quiet. There was not the slightest sound or presence of a human. In this strange atmosphere, suddenly, a black figure appeared in the courtyard. That figure quickly turned into a few afterimages, moving quickly within the courtyard with familiarity. Soon, it stopped in a dark room in a secluded corner of the courtyard. With a creak, the door opened. An old man dressed in white Miao attire came face to face with the black shadow. The old man was overjoyed. He immediately turned around and returned to his room. The black shadow followed closely behind. The moment the door closed, the black shadow pressed one hand on his chest, which was the standard Miao tribe etiquette. I've been guarding outside the Sacred Maiden Institute for a full 4 hours and only saw Yi Qing Luo leaving the Sacred Maiden Institute alone, and her mood was obviously downcast. This man was none other than the man who had appeared outside the Saintess courtyard. The man's voice was very serious. I noticed that Yi Qing Luo's eyes were slightly red, as if she had cried. After Yi Qing Luo left the courtyard, I still haven't seen the Sacred Maiden and the former Sacred Maiden. Chapter 29:36. The elderly man's hand knocked on the table a few times. It's rumored that the overlord dotes on Yi Qing Luo to the core. Yi Qing Luo left the Sacred Maiden Institute alone. Did she manage to see the overlord? The man shook his head. No. The old man's frown deepened. With his other hand, he propped himself up on the chair and stroked his white beard. The Saintess, the former Saintess, and the Supreme God, all three of them disappeared at the same time. The old man muttered something. Suddenly, his ruthless eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth curled up into an extremely evil smile. You now remove the first-class male attendant beside me and go to the Holy Maiden Institute. Tell them that I have an important matter to discuss with the Holy Maiden. The man bowed his head respectfully. Yes. The man quickly left the room. By the time the man returned to the old man, half an hour had already passed. How is it? The old man asked anxiously. The man said concisely, a first-class male attendant wishes to see the Saintess, but he was stopped by the guards of the Saintess Institute. After the Holy Lady's guard went to report, she said that because the Holy Lady had obtained the inheritance of the King of Venomous Worms, she needed to cultivate in seclusion to absorb the power of venomous worms from the King of Venomous Worms, so she would not see her for the time being. Where is the former Holy Maiden? The old man was not angered by Miao Yi's refusal. Instead, a smile appeared on his face. The guard of the Saintess said that because the former Saintess had just reunited with the Saintess had to go into seclusion. The former Saintess wanted to take advantage of the final moments before her ascension to accompany the Saintess and protect her. Thus, she rejected Elder's request to see her. The old man nodded thoughtfully. Continue to guard the Saint Lady Institute. If you see the Saint Lady, the former Saint Lady, or His Majesty, inform me immediately. Yes. As soon as the man finished speaking, he turned into an afterimage and disappeared from the room. Only the old man was left in the room. The old man's sinister eyes still narrowed slightly. His face was filled with a sinister smile. He seemed to be calculating something. After sitting for a while, the old man's eyes lit up and he slammed the table as if he had confirmed something. Then, he carefully took out a square brocade box from under the table. Looking at the old man's nervous and devout expression, Zhang Xian couldn't help but sigh. He could also guess that the brocade box was extremely important to him. The old man carefully placed the brocade box on the table. His wrinkled and slightly withered hand slowly touched the brocade box. He stared at the brocade box with a hint of madness on his face. Even his body, which was sitting on the chair, was tense and trembling because of his excitement. It was not fear. It was not fear. Instead, it was excitement. He couldn't help but smile crazily. The old man devoutly stared at the brocade box for a long time before he slowly opened it. A black mist-like aura surged out of the brocade box. Vaguely, the black aura dispersed and turned into a palm-sized object that looked like a copper mirror. What happened? It was hoarse and ear-piercing, as if it was an electric sound created using various modern sound effects. In this quiet room, it was extremely strange. When the old man heard that voice, he was both delighted and respectful. It's me, I've made a new discovery, and I want to tell you, speak. A cold word popped out from the copper mirror. The old man could not wait to repeat what he had said to the man just now in a concise and comprehensive manner. Chapter 29:37. There was no response from the copper mirror side. The elderly seemed to be encouraged as he continued to put on an excited performance. Meow doesn't know the Meow tribe's rules, that's understandable. But the former sacred maiden couldn't possibly not understand the importance of the Meow tribe's people to a sacred maiden. Generally speaking, after the new sacred maiden ascends to the position, she should be accompanied by us elders, to let the Meow tribe people know the current sacred maiden's habits. But ever since Meow became the sacred maiden, she directly disappeared with the former sacred maiden. If it wasn't for some necessary reason, the former sacred maiden would absolutely not let Meow take the risk of offending the entire Meow tribe people, disappearing together with Meow. This time, the copper mirror finally had some reaction. What reason? Previously I wasn't on the Overlord's body, so, I guess. The elderly laughed coldly. The copper mirror's black cheese suddenly brightened and dimmed, floating and sinking. It was so strange that it made one's scalp go numb. Because of Miao Yi and Yiqing Luo's relationship, Yan Xiao Yi and the others were treated as VIPs by the Miao tribe people. The courtyard where they stayed was located in the best location of the Miao tribe, with beautiful scenery. Qing Luo, Yan Xiao Yi and Xiao Jin were sitting on the stone bench in the courtyard, chatting about something. The minute they saw Yiqing Luo walking in, Yan Xiao Yi immediately went up to welcome her. Yan Xiaoyi's vision swept a glance behind Yiqing Luo. Where's the Overlord? He's not around. Yiqing Luo replied calmly, as she walked towards the courtyard. Are the others around? Yan Xiaoyi could tell that Yiqing Luo's mood was down, as she worriedly followed her footsteps. Everyone is resting in the room. Did something happen? The Overlord's goo worm in his body. After tonight, I intend to leave the Miao tribe. Yiqing Luo halted her footsteps, as she interrupted Yan Xiaoyi's words. She turned around, as her lips twitched slightly. If the secluded palace's people are targeting me, if I continue to stay in the Miao tribe will be implicated. Secluded palace's side, are they still stirring up trouble? Yan Xiaoyi recalled that this morning, Yiqing Luo had yet to reach the land of the Goo King as her brows creased tightly. This morning. You were blocked by the people from the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo nodded her head and didn't deny it, although I don't have any good impression towards the Miao tribe, but after all, the current sacred maiden and tribe leader are all Yi alone. We still need Yi to help Ajahn suppress the goo poison in his body, so the Miao tribe definitely cannot be destroyed. When Kitty Li and the others heard Yiqing Luo's voice, they hurriedly rushed over. Kitty Li was the first to jump into Yiqing Luo's arms. Sister. Zhou Mo, who was laughing like a rascal, followed closely behind. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and noticed that Zhou Mo and Kitty Li came out from the same guest room. Wasn't this development a little too fast? She rubbed Kitty Li's fluffy head, raised her eyebrows, and glanced sideways at Zhou Mo. From Kitty Li's eyes, Zhou Mo could tell what Yiqing Luo was trying to express as his thin lips curled into a roguish smile as his red phoenix eyes rose. As though it was responding to Yiqing Luo. Expressing that he was serious towards Kitty Li, whereas, Kitty Lee, who was nestled in Yiqing Luo's arms, was filled with the excitement of meeting her own sister, totally not noticing the undercurrent surging between Yiqing Luo and Zhou Mo's gazes. Kitty Lee's little head raised up, as that young and tender little face was filled with excitement. Sister is leaving the Miao tribe. Kitty Lee wants to stay with sister too. Chapter 29:38. Yiqing Luo wanted to leave the Miao tribe. The others naturally had to leave together with Yiqing Luo. After a short while, everyone decided on a time. At noon tomorrow, he would bid farewell to the Miao tribe and return to the western continent. Kitty Lee scratched the 2 ears on the top of her head. Big sister, what about brother-in-law Dizun? Isn't Dizun brother-in-law coming with us? He will come back tomorrow and go with us. Yiqing Luo intentionally avoided herself, not thinking about Dmo Xian's matters in detail, only giving a slight smile as she replied. How could the others not see the reluctance in Yiqing Luo's smile? He could roughly guess that it was related to the venom in Dmo Xian's body. Yiqing Luo didn't want to talk about it. Naturally, they wouldn't go out of their way to ask. However, Kitty Lee had always been carefree and rarely thought too deeply about things. Kitty Lee had only sensed through the contract between her and Yiqing Luo that Yiqing Luo wasn't in a good mood at this moment, so her expression turned bitter as she hugged Yiqing Luo's waist tightly, speaking out softly. Sister, why does Kitty sense that you're very unhappy? Every time I mention brother-in-law, Dizun, I get upset. Is it because brother-in-law, Dizun? She had yet to finish her words. His body was pulled back by a strong force. Kitty Lee's petite body was forcefully pulled away from Yiqing Luo's embrace, falling into another warm embrace. Kitty Lee was startled. She raised her claws and was about to scratch the man who was hugging her. Little wild cat, be good. Zhou Mo was a step ahead of her and held her slender little hand. Kitty Lee glared at him. Frivolous man, can't you see that I'm not happy? Kitty wants to accompany big sister. Your little mouth, are you being disobedient again? Zhou Mo squinted his almond-shaped eyes and placed his slender fingers on Kitty Lee's lips. His gaze was deep and threatening. Kitty Lee's cheeks immediately turned crimson as if she had thought of something. Even the pair of straight ears on her head drooped down. Zhou Mo apparently loved this Kitty Lee very much. His long arms tightened, encircling Kitty Lee even tighter in his embrace. He then glanced sideways, glancing at Yiqing Luo from the corner of his eyes. Since you've decided to set off tomorrow, then rest early. It's getting late and tomorrow we still have to continue on our journey for a few days. Yiqing Luo smiled at him. She knew that Zhou Mo was trying to change the topic for her. Not mentioning Dmo Xian. At least for a period of time, she would not think about Dmo Xian. If he didn't think about it, he wouldn't keep imagining the scene of Dmo Xian curing the goo. She took a deep breath and tried to keep her smile and voice calm. All right, everyone, go and rest. Make sure you're in good spirits so that we can continue our journey tomorrow. Zhou Mo carried Kitty Lee, who was still crying out and hadn't had a good time with her sister, back to the room. Yan Xiaoyi took a look at Yiqing Luo, her eyes filled with worry. He wanted to open his mouth to persuade Yiqing Luo. But he didn't know what to say. All along, Yiqing Luo had been their leader. Regardless of the situation, he could remain calm and unruffled. He would never let anything, no matter what, affect his emotions, affect their emotions. It could be said that Yiqing Luo had always been a strong young lady who could support everything. But Yan Xiaoyi felt. No matter how strong Yiqing Luo's heart was, she was still a lady after all. When Dizun was not around. As a sister, she should accompany Yiqing Luo and not let Yiqing Luo's imagination run wild. But looking at Yiqing Luo's forced smile, that pair of dim but pretended to be calm eyes. Chapter 29:39. If he accompanied Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo was trying to reassure her. He could only maintain this fake smile, maintaining a calm mask. To Yiqing Luo, this would only make her more tired. If he didn't accompany Yiqing Luo, he was worried that Yiqing Luo would let her imagination run wild and be alone. She accompanied Yiqing Luo but was worried that when Yiqing Luo faced her, she was still suppressing her own emotions, not willing to let it out. Because he cared. Because he cared. The more worried Yan Xiaoyi was about Yiqing Luo, the more considerations she had. You and Jin Zi go rest. Yiqing Luo felt Yan Xiaoyi's gaze on her and she had just turned around when she bumped into a pair of worried eyes. Yiqing Luo's heart warmed up and her smile also warmed up a little. I should also take a good rest. These few days, my emotions have been tense. As she spoke, she yawned and pretended to be sleepy. Yan Xiaoyi frowned and wanted to say something. He was interrupted by Yiqing Luo. All right, I don't want to see everyone tomorrow, after we set off, with a drowsy look. Saying that, Yiqing Luo didn't give Yan Xiaoyi a chance to reply. He stretched himself and walked towards his room. Qing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi hastened her footsteps and chased up to her. Qiao Jin held her hand. Let's go back. Let her be alone for a while. Later, we'll wait for an opportunity to get some spies to drink with her. Yiqing Luo wasn't lying when she said that she was sleepy. It was true exhaustion. Physically and mentally exhausted. However, no matter how tired his body was, he couldn't help it. But she still couldn't close her eyes. Once she closed her eyes, a handsome, godlike face would appear in her mind. She would think of his pale face and furrowed brows as he endured the plot. She would remember his face as he lay unconscious on the stone bed. She could not control her emotions at all. She couldn't help but think of Dmo Xian. Under such circumstances, how could she sleep peacefully when she was physically and mentally exhausted? Night gradually fell. There was complete silence in the courtyard. The moonlight was like water, bringing with it a slight chill. The sky was so dark that not even the moonlight could illuminate it. Amidst the silent atmosphere. Outside the courtyard, a few burning torches suddenly lit up. The torches closed in quickly. When she arrived outside the courtyard, she saw a white figure rushing into the courtyard. Miss Yi. Miss Yi, that person's voice was not soft. Under this tranquility, it was exceptionally loud and clear. As he called out, that person had already entered the courtyard and was looking around anxiously. However, not a single shadow could be seen. Miss Yi. I have something to ask of you. That person didn't know where Yiqing Luo's room was, so naturally he didn't dare to barge in as he stood outside the courtyard, calling out loudly. What's up? Suddenly, a light voice entered the man's ears. The man was startled and turned around abruptly. On a lush tree, a girl dressed in red was leaning against the tree trunk. Her hair, which was not tied up at all, was draped over her shoulders and cascaded down like a waterfall. There was not a single star in the pitch-black night sky. However, this girl seemed to have gathered all the light. It was so dazzling that it made people raise their eyebrows. She was like a fairy in the night, exuding her endless charm. Devilish and enchanting to the extreme. The young lady glanced at the man below lazily. A white jade hand was holding a white jade wine pot, gently swaying it. Chapter 29:40. That smile looked bewitching. Like a demoness who bewitched people. But on a closer look, one could see the melancholy within. Yiqing Luo stared at the person below, her brows flirtatious as she raised the wine pot and poured the fine wine into her mouth. She then recalled her lazy voice. Right, Judge Elder, what's the matter for you to come here in the middle of the night? The person below wasn't anyone else, it was the right Judge Elder. In the dark night, the young lady's charming eyes were like the stars, resplendent to the extreme. Right Judge Elder was reminded by Yi Qing Luo in this way when he suddenly realized that he had almost been bewitched by a young lass. He shook his head and speedily explained his intention. Miss Yi, Old Swa, and I have already followed your suggestion and used the Miao Goose seal to seal those 5 secluded palaces guards in the underground tunnel. We also found those Miao tribe guards who carried the secluded palaces guards yesterday. Speaking to this point, his expression obviously turned ugly. Indeed, as what Miss Yi said, those guards are different from usual, and even some Miao tribe guards actually developed rebellious thoughts, offending their superiors. Until now, the right Judge Elder still felt a lingering fear. Those secluded palace guards, after he and Old Swa asked a few more questions, they directly took action and every move was extremely vicious, as though they were facing their father's murderer. They recalled what Yi Qing Luo had reminded them previously. If one's heart was greedy and the darkness was too deep, they would easily be corroded by the demonic qi on these puppets, becoming a puppet controlled by the demonic qi. The left and right Judge Elders could no longer doubt the truth of Yi Qing Luo's words. Those Miao tribe guards who had been completely swallowed by the demonic qi, Old Swa and I, have all killed them. Right Judge Elder's tone was obviously heavy when he said this. Emin, Yi Qing Luo replied faintly. Right Judge Elder would make such a choice, and it was indeed what an elder should do. After all, by killing a few people, they were protecting the entire Miao tribe. The right elder took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. Miss Yi, although the remaining guards have not lost their souls, it is obvious that something is wrong. Old Swa and I acted on our own and locked them up in the woodshed. I came here especially to ask if Miss Yi has a solution. Let these guards who have not been completely corroded by the evil aura return to normal. Very difficult. Yi Qing Luo lazily leaned her head against the tree branch, as her eyes faintly gazed at the pitch-black sky, towards the evil qi on those puppets. I'm currently at a loss of what to do. The right elder's face turned pale and he clenched his fists. His face was full of struggle. The number of Miao tribesmen was small. Moreover, after being together for so many years, they had developed feelings for each other. If it was possible, the right Judge Elder would try his best to keep these people alive. But, if Yi Qing Luo had no other way. For the future of the Miao tribe, he had to harden his heart. This thought caused the right elder's face to turn increasingly pale. Those are the guards from the Palace of Darkness. What kind of organization is the Palace of Darkness? Why would there be such a strange thing? And it can control people's hearts. Influence people's hearts. The right elder's face was ashen, as his throat was filled with bitterness. Yi Qing Luo shook the white jade wine flask in her hands, as she heard the sound of a few drops of wine. She tugged her lips lightly. I know, instead. It will speed up your Miao tribe's destruction. Chapter 2941. Right Judge Elder sensed that Yi Qing Luo's current mood was not right. He suppressed the questions he wanted to ask about the Palace of Gloomy Shadows. Miss Yi, are you drunk? If you drink too much, I'll get your friend to help you back to your room to rest first. As for other matters, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Drunk? Yi Qing Luo gave a low laugh as her brows were filled with an indescribable allure. I hope that I'm drunk. Right Judge Elder was slightly stunned. Yi Qing Luo had already floated down from the tree branch. Her red dress was like fire, as though she was a blazing spirit that bloomed in the night. The enchanting and resplendent brilliance was extremely bewitching. This look, no matter how one looked at it, she looked as though she was drunk. And she wasn't light. But when the right Judge Elder saw Yi Qing Luo's eyes, he wasn't able to determine if she was really drunk. That pair of charming eyes, although it was tainted with a trace of haziness, floating and sinking. but she was sober and calm. It was totally not the expression a drunk person should have. Right, Judge Elder's words were stuck in his throat. Ha! Another languid laughter came out from the young lady's mouth. She lazily curled her pink lips, with a hint of ridicule in her smile. Looks like, I've been thinking of ways and means not to implicate the Meow tribe, in the end. The Meow tribe is still implicated. Miss Yi. Right, Judge Elder was puzzled. He was already confused by Yi Qing Luo's mood today. Now hearing Yi Qing Luo's baffling words, he was even more confused. Right, Judge Elder, if you really want to thank me, then help me guard the Sacred Maiden Institute. Perhaps, later on, I will be able to remember how to help those guards who are tainted with evil qi to clear the evil qi in their bodies. Perhaps that might be the case. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly, her voice was melodious, like pearls falling on a plate. Right, Judge Elder's white brows creased into a bundle. He still hadn't understood what Yi Qing Luo's baffling words meant. Just at this moment. Under the night sky, the extremely quiet Meow tribe suddenly exploded into a clamor. Immediately following that, the Meow tribe which was enveloped in the night sky was lit up brightly. The fire torches rippled along with the wind, flickering rays of light. Hearing the sudden clamor outside, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. Right, Judge Elder was stunned again. He raised his head and looked towards the horizon. Those bright torches' rays had dyed half the sky red. You're just in time. Quick, run. An anxious voice was heard. Following that, a figure was seen rushing over from the dark corner of the courtyard. Apparently, he had snuck into this courtyard secretly. Old Swa, what happened? As soon as the Right Judge Elder saw him, he immediately went forward to support the hurried figure. Left Judge Elder waved his hand while panting heavily, as his eyes looked anxiously at Yi Qing Luo. Miss Yi, follow me and leave from the Meow tribe's rear mountain. Although that road is a bit remote, it is absolutely safe. Back of the mountain. The elder on the right frowned when he heard this. What's going on? Right, Judge Elder said hurriedly in Qing. Yi was, Qing said, Mr. Elder. Was a Mr. The right, Mr. said. The elder was in. The judging elder said hurriedly with an anxious look on his face, Miss Yi, there's no time. Let's talk as we walk. Yeah, it's too late. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a smile as she gazed towards the sky which was dyed red. Since the people from secluded Darkness Palace are here, they will not let go of any chance. No matter which path we take, it's too late. Most importantly, DMO Xian was still in the Holy Maiden Institute. Chapter 2942. Elder's was face darkened. No. Miss Yi, why don't you go to the Saint's Yard to hide? I don't believe that those people from the Palace of Darkness would dare to barge into our Meow tribe. Secluded Darkness Palace even dared to provoke the Imperial Palace. Why would they be afraid of a Meow tribe? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. Their target is me. Could it be, just because you noticed that the guards of the Palace of Darkness are actually all corpses? The secret of being able to infect evil energy. The elder on the right clenched his fists angrily. Because of the puppets from the Palace of Darkness and the infected Meow guards. The two judging elders had been extremely dissatisfied with the Palace of Darkness for a long time. Yi Qing Luo smiled but didn't reply. The reason why the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was against her. Even she herself didn't know. Perhaps the dark forces had an irreconcilable grudge against her. Or it could be that the Nether Palace wanted to deal with DMO Xian and she was DMO Xian's woman. Or perhaps, there were many possibilities. However, Abyss Palace's true goal was to wait until he would only know when the person behind the scenes of the Gloomy Palace appeared. Why is it suddenly so noisy? What happened? Yan Xiaoyi and the rest walked out of their rooms. Yiqing Luo looked at those people who were walking over. Their hair was not messy. His clothes were neat and tidy without any creases. However, these clothes were the same clothes which Yiqing Luo wore not long ago when she came to the courtyard to discuss with them about leaving the Miao tribe. That was to say, she sent her brothers back to their rooms to rest. None of them could rest in peace. They were all worried about her. Yiqing Luo's heart warmed. Qing Luo, why are there so many torches outside? What kind of Miao ritual is this? Yan Xiaoyi looked at the sky that was dyed red, and then looked outside the perimeter wall, at the red glow that enveloped everything. Kitty seems to have smelled something weird. It stinks. Kitty Lee wrinkled her nose and covered it with her hand. Zhou Mo tightened his arms around her shoulders and frowned as he looked at the sky through the high walls. The expression on his face was no longer as frivolous as before. Instead, there was a hint of solemnity. What's going on? Such a big thing happened in the Miao tribe and I didn't receive any news. As Taozi spoke, she took out the important information that Bapti had given her from her bosom and kept rummaging through it. But no matter how he searched, he could not find a single piece of information related to the Miao tribe. Gue Wu, who was walking at the back, had a solemn and cold expression on his face as he exchanged glances with Zhou Mo. Although Gue Wu did not say anything, his expression had already revealed the seriousness of the matter. Both he and Zhou Mo had grim expressions on their faces. After some time, Gue Wu slowly shifted his line of sight onto Yiqing Luo, as he opened his mouth coldly, a very strong aura. Yeah. Yiqing Luo naturally sensed the majestic overbearing aura outside the Miao tribe. Where's the formidable opponent? I'm afraid, it's going to be difficult to deal with. Miss Yi, I think you should follow me to the back of the mountain. Even if there are people guarding the back mountain, we can still fight our way out with our strength. Elder Zhua immediately voiced out his opinion after hearing their words. To have such a strong presence, she obviously came prepared, and will definitely not give me a chance to leave. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, as the cold glint reflected out was a little biting cold. Chapter 29:43. The elders on the left and right looked at each other and their faces turned pale. Miss Yi, you mean, there is a spy from the Palace of Darkness in the Miao tribe? Yiqing Luo smiled without saying a word. But this smile also tacitly agreed with their guesses. Indeed, if it wasn't for an insider. Why would the people of the dark secluded palace choose this time to lead the dark secluded palace to surround the Miao tribe? The new saintess was not present. The former saintess wasn't here either. The two pillars of support were gone. The people of Gloomy Palace easily incited the people of the Miao tribe. At that time, she would not only have to deal with the people from the Palace of Darkness. He still had to split himself to guard against the Miao tribesmen. The right elder clenched his fists and was filled with hatred. My Miao tribe has been in the Miao tribe's territory for generations. We rarely appear in other parts of the continent and make enemies with others. I originally thought that this would ensure the simplicity of our Miao tribe's people. I didn't expect. There is no limit to human greed. Yiqing Luo opened her mouth calmly. There are two sides to everything. You thought that by restricting the Miao clansmen from leaving the Miao clan, you would be able to maintain their original intentions, but because the people they interacted with were all Miao clansmen, they don't know the loathing of the outside world, so it's easier for them to listen to other people's slanderous words, or perhaps the temptation given. When the left and right judging elders heard Yiqing Luo's words, they seemed to have suffered a blow as they staggered a few steps backwards. We must find the mole behind all of this. Let him know the consequences of betraying the Miao tribe. The right elder's voice was filled with deep sorrow and regret. In order to preserve the simplicity of the people, they specially made this suggestion. Unexpectedly, it became an opportunity for the Palace of Gloomy Darkness to make use of. The traitor who betrayed the Meow tribe and sent information to the Palace of Darkness. He would not let them off easily. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were frivolous as her face still had that lazy expression. Leave this courtyard first, in case it implicates the both of you. Yiqing Luo didn't really like these two judging elders. But he didn't hate it either. At least compared to those sanctimonious Meow elders. At least they were more sincere towards the Meow tribe. The right judge elder's face turned cold. You are the Meow tribe's guest and also the saint's friend. The Palace of Secluded Darkness is looking for the Meow tribe in such a blatant manner. If I am afraid that I will be implicated and ignore you, then I am not fit to be the judge elder. Yes. What justice and fairness are we talking about? Elders Will clenched his fists and said with righteous indignation, it's you who allowed the Meow tribe to find a saintess who can truly be the saintess. You are the benefactor of the Meow tribe. Their gazes were firm and serious. Yiqing Luo looked at them for some time and laughed. I know your sincerity. Right, Judge Elder, if you really want to. Yiqing Luo. Come out for this elder. Suddenly, a burst of angry curses came from outside the courtyard. Then, the gate of the courtyard was split open by a palm strike. Instantly, wood splinters flew everywhere. A skinny figure dashed into the room. His mouth was still cursing and swearing. Yiqing Luo, you jinx. Hurry up and roll out for this elder. Did he think that by hiding here, he could escape from the trouble he had caused? Come out now. Old 5. When the elder on the right saw who it was, he yelled, what are you yelling about? Shut up. The person who came, wasn't it that hot-tempered fifth elder Meow? Chapter 29:44. Immediately, fifth elder Meow stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. Elder right, surely you're not thinking of shielding this jinx, right? What jinx? Don't talk nonsense. The right elder's face darkened. Fifth elder Meow pointed at the flames outside the door. He gritted his teeth and cursed, you call this nonsense? The Palace of Gloomy Darkness is already at our doorstep. The right judge furrowed his white eyebrows. When fifth elder Meow saw that he did not speak, he felt that he was in the right. On top of that, fifth elder Meow had already exposed himself in the underground tunnel. He was colluding with Meow Rongrong and had the intention of helping Meow Rongrong get the position. Meow Yi had already become a holy maiden. The things that he had done would definitely be told to Meow Yi by Yiqing Luo in revenge. At that time, it would be difficult for him to keep his position as an elder. Fifth elder Meow wouldn't think that losing his position as an elder was a mistake caused by his improper thoughts. Instead, he blamed everything on Yiqing Luo. He originally had a belly full of anger and unhappiness towards Yiqing Luo. At this moment, he felt even more. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, his and Meow Rongrong's plan wouldn't have failed. After Meow Rongrong became an elder, then he would be the hero. He was Meow Rongrong's confidant. But now, everything was disrupted. He would even suffer from Meow Yi and Yiqing Luo's revenge. The more he thought about it, the deeper the hatred in the fifth elder's heart grew. The deeper it was, the more he wanted to destroy Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo knew about the things that fifth elder Meow's mind was filled with, they would definitely look at him with disdain. She really did not have the time to complain to Meow Yi. She was not in the mood to go against elder Meow Wu. For a short-sighted and hot-tempered person like elder Meow Wu, it was only a matter of time before he suffered a loss. There was no need for her to do it herself. He could only say that elder Meow Wu thought too highly of him. No one knew that in Yiqing Luo's eyes, fifth elder Meow was not even comparable to an ant. He was not worthy of her attention at all. Fifth elder Meow was unaware of this as he shouted in rage, ever since this woman came to the Meow tribe, there have been various incidents happening in the Meow tribe. Our Meow tribe has never had a peaceful day. How was she not a jinx? Misfortune followed him wherever he went. If she hadn't become enemies with the emissary of the Palace of Darkness during the Saintess selection ceremony. If she had not forced the second palace master of the Palace of Darkness to kill those useless people, the guards of the Meow tribe would not have been infected. If she didn't insist on Meow Yi becoming the Saintess and defend the Palace of Darkness, the people from the Palace of Darkness wouldn't have surrounded the Meow tribe at this time. Fifth Elder Meow spat out a series of incriminating evidence. Saying that, he panted heavily as the green veins on his forehead popped out, as he pointed at Yiqing Luo in a towering rage. This woman is a demoness. He is the jinx of the Meow tribe. Elder Zhua, who had been silent all this while, said sternly, "Old Five, I thought you were just a little hot-tempered. I didn't expect you to be so narrow-minded. In your eyes, do you only see these superficial things? You keep saying that the Palace of Darkness had been targeting the Meow tribe time and time again because of Miss Yi. Then have you ever thought that on such an important day for our Meow tribe, Palace of Darkness totally disregarded our Meow tribe's reputation and kept creating trouble? What do they treat our Meow tribe as?" Chapter 29:45. Right Judge Elder sneered as he spoke, as though he was ridiculing Fifth Elder Meow's ignorance. That disdainful gaze swept past Fifth Elder Meow as he continued, "If it wasn't for Miss Yi, those guards from Secluded Palace would not only be infected by those few Meow guards. If it wasn't for Miss Yi, those infected guards would all turn into puppets. By then, have you thought about what kind of state our Meow tribe would be in?" Left Judge Elder also continued, "Old Five, don't think that we don't know what happened in the underground tunnel and push all the blame on to Miss Yi. If it wasn't for Meow Rongrong's evil intentions, collaborating with Secluded Palace, we wouldn't have ended up in such a state. If Secluded Palace wants to make a fuss, they need to see if we old bones allow it or not." Right and left Judge Elders spoke one after another as their imposing manner surged. Every word and sentence forced Fifth Elder Meow to take a few steps back. Fifth Elder Meow's face flushed red as his fingers trembled as he pointed at this and that with an annoyed look. Yiqing Luo, who was blocked behind by the left and right elders, listened to the two elders arguing for her, looking at the two of them standing in front of her, that tall and straight back view. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed past a faint sense of warmth. Most of the time, respect and help were mutual. Right and left Judge Elders treated her well. She would naturally remember this kindness. The two of them, at this moment, still stood in front of her without any hesitation, speaking up for her. That was enough for Yiqing Luo to remember them. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled slightly as she was about to push the two of them aside to reply. But this smile fell into Fifth Elder Meow's eyes. Fifth Elder Meow only felt that Yiqing Luo was ridiculing him, showing off that she had the help of the two elders. Immediately, Elder Meow felt as if there was a ball of anger in his head. It surged up and devoured all his rationality. The two of you have made up your mind to speak up for this jinx, haven't you? Can I take it that you're in cahoots? Yiqing Luo, you want to invade Meow tribe. Trying to make use of Meow Yi's trust towards you, to ally with old left and right, to let you invade Meow tribe legitimately, right? He was howling as his eyes turned red, and without any explanation, he went up to pull Yiqing Luo. "You leave with this elder. As long as we hand over a jinx like you, my Meow tribe will have peace." Yiqing Luo would never let Fifth Elder Meow bump into her. Fifth Elder Meow's hand hadn't even come close. Yiqing Luo had already moved her feet, avoiding Fifth Elder Meow's outstretched hand. Coincidentally, the left and right judges' elders quickly grabbed onto Fifth Elder Meow. Fifth Elder Meow was so infuriated that he kept on struggling as he scolded, "Yiqing Luo, you slut. If you really treat Meow Yi as your friend, then for Meow Yi's sake, don't implicate my Miao tribe. You should just surrender yourself to us. Heh, Yiqing Luo's lips twitched slightly as she gave a scornful smile. A pair of long and narrow eyes curved into a faint, seductive arc. Fifth Elder Miao, if I say you're stupid, you really are. The girl's voice was filled with disdain and ridicule. Fifth Elder Miao's face flushed red from the provocation. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, wanting to pounce forward and forcefully attack. However, he was quickly held down by the elders on the left and right. Chapter 2946. Yiqing Luo's words left her mouth. Fifth Elder Miao, who was making a racket, instantly shut his mouth. The other two judging elders also looked towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo met their gazes as she smiled calmly. The answer is no. From the moment Secluded Palace set their eyes on Miao tribe, it is impossible for Miao tribe to remain unscathed. When Yiqing Luo's last sentence left her mouth, the few elders' faces turned ghastly pale at this instance. Especially Fifth Elder Miao, his face was pale and ugly as it kept on twisting. His ruthless eyes shone with a dim luster as he racked his brains to think of how to rebuke Yiqing Luo's words. Yiqing Luo didn't even take a look at Fifth Elder Miao as she walked straight towards the courtyard's entrance. Demonis! You're trying to escape. Fifth Elder Miao seemed to have found a breakthrough as he screamed in a sharp, tearing voice. He struggled as he pushed the left and right judging elders. The both of you are that demoness accomplices. The left and right judging elders restrained Fifth Elder Miao as they watched him struggling endlessly, cursing and swearing. The two of them looked at each other. This Fifth Elder Miao's every word was directed at Yiqing Luo. And he kept on leading the tempo, trying to make them hand Yiqing Luo over to Secluded Palace. Could it be? Miao tribe's traitor, Secluded Palace's spy, was Fifth Elder Miao. This thought made the left and right judging elders' faces sunk. The gaze which they shot towards Fifth Elder Miao was filled with judgment. Whereas at this moment, Yiqing Luo and the rest had already walked out of the courtyard as they rushed towards the direction of Miao tribe's entrance. Miao tribe's surroundings were brightly lit. The burning torches swayed as it drew out a long silhouette. There wasn't a single person around. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sneered as she sized up the surroundings. It looked like all the Miao tribesmen had already rushed to the entrance of Miao tribe. He had only sent Elder Miao Wu alone to the courtyard where she was staying to invite her. This was a good idea. Fifth Elder Miao was a hot-tempered person. Whereas for Yiqing Luo, after hearing that Miao tribe was surrounded, she was agitated by Fifth Elder Miao's nasty words. She made a move on Fifth Elder Miao. Then, he ran away with his brothers. This also confirmed that Yiqing Luo had a guilty conscience and didn't dare to face the truth of the Palace of Seclusion. In this way, the Miao tribesmen would also feel that Secluded Palace was targeting Yiqing Luo and they, the Miao tribesmen, were innocent victims. Secluded Darkness Palace could swallow up the Miao tribe legitimately and also push the blame to Yiqing Luo, thus alienating the relationship between the Miao tribe and Yiqing Luo. As for Yiqing Luo and the Sacred Maiden's intimate relationship. As a result, the people of the Miao tribe would no longer have the respect and faith they once had for the saintess. Instead, they would be filled with resentment. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness have brains. Gue Wu, who was usually silent, also opened his mouth. It was obvious that he had seen through the plans of the Palace of Darkness. Yan Xiaoyi and Kitty Li blinked their eyes, not really understanding the meaning behind Gue Wu's words. However, their men just patted their heads and smiled mysteriously. Looks like tonight is going to be a little tricky. Yiqing Luo didn't intentionally explain as her lips curled into a smile. Master Gue Wu, you will help right? Gue Wu lifted his eyelids as he squinted at Yiqing Luo but didn't say a word. Not rebutting meant that he had tacitly agreed. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt that she had a backer now. Gue Wu and Zhou Mo had always been a mysterious existence. Yiqing Luo couldn't tell how their abilities were. But one thing was for sure. Chapter 2947. As long as she had nothing to worry about, she could give it her all. The group hurried to the entrance of the Miao tribe. The entrance of the Miao tribe was now surrounded by Miao tribesmen. Standing right in front of the Miao tribesmen were Great Elder Miao and the rest. On seeing Yiqing Luo and the rest silhouettes, Great Elder Miao immediately went up to them. "Miss Yi, you all, why are you all?" His gaze went past Yiqing Luo and the rest, looking behind them. "Look for Fifth Elder Miao." Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. She didn't have any good impression of this hypocrite. Although Grand Elder Miao's face put on a worried expression, trying to show that he didn't wish for Yiqing Luo and the others to rush over to send themselves to death. "That's right. I didn't ask Old Fifth to inform you, to ask you." Great Elder Miao said ambiguously on purpose. Based on what he said, it sounded like he had arranged for Elder Miao Wu to go to the courtyard to inform her so that she could seize the opportunity to escape. It was as if he was thinking of her wholeheartedly. Looking at Grand Elder Miao's hypocritical worried face, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but tug her lips as she sneered, "Let him forcefully bring me over, to dedicate himself to your Miao tribe till my death." Great Elder Miao's expression stiffened, and he hurriedly said, "And no. How? What happens to your Elder Miao has nothing to do with me." Yiqing Luo directly interrupted Grand Elder Miao's words. "Since the Palace of Darkness's people specifically pointed out my name to look for me, then I'll come over to take a look at what tricks the Palace of Darkness is trying to play." His sonorous and forceful words deterred the surrounding noises of people pointing at him. Yiqing Luo's brows were frivolous as her charming eyes stared straight ahead, raising the torch up high, surrounding the Miao tribe, those people from secluded palace. At a glance, there were at least 1,000 people. They were all disciples wearing the uniform of the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo's gaze finally fell onto the most conspicuous spot among the Palace of Darkness's disciples. It was a huge beast, comparable to a dinosaur. It looked ugly and ferocious, and it was impossible to tell what kind of magical beast it was. They had almost blocked the path to the Miao tribe. On the body of the magical beast, standing in front of them was a woman in a long white dress, with an ethereal aura. The woman was young and beautiful, but there was an unconcealable flirtatiousness between her brows. There was a clear sense of incongruity with his temperament and age. At this moment, the woman was staring at Yiqing Luo with a venomous look. Beside the woman was a woman dressed in the attire of the Palace of Darkness. Her face was also filled with hatred, and there was an arrogant and proud smile in her eyes. After looking at the faces of the two women, Yiqing Luo scoffed in disdain. These two people were not strangers. It was Plum, who had been humiliated under Yiqing Luo's hands, and the so-called envoy from secluded palace, Yan Zhenfei. These two people had forgotten the pain after the scar had healed. Here to stir up trouble again. Yiqing Luo was staring intently at that huge magical beast as she was still considering if her Shiju's tiny body was able to take on that dinosaur-like magical beast's devastation. Suddenly, a cautious and tentative voice rang in her ears, Miss Yi." Yiqing Luo turned back and met with Fourth Elder Miao's slightly flustered expression. Chapter 2948. Hearing this, First Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao immediately shifted their gazes over. Fourth Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly, his face filled with caution. Ever since the Saintess accepted the inheritance yesterday, she has not shown herself. If it was in the past, we wouldn't have said anything if she didn't show herself, but now, after all, she is the holy lady of the Miao tribe and the future tribe leader of the Miao tribe. She must bear this responsibility. After fourth elder Miao finished his words, he carefully took a look at Yi Qing Luo's expression. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's calm expression, he continued, "If Miss Yi knows where Sacred Maiden is, you must tell us. At least, at this time, with Saint as present, she can appease the hearts of the Miao tribe. My motive for coming to the Miao tribe is very simple, and I believe that previously, Miao Rongrong should have mentioned it to you." Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't change as she met fourth elder Miao's eyes calmly. "I need the strongest person in the Miao tribe to do something for me. After Yi received the inheritance of the Gu King, she went to do it for me. She can't come back for now." Yi Qing Luo's tone was extremely calm. Fourth elder Miao's eyes flickered a few times, unable to differentiate the truth in Yi Qing Luo's words. When Grand Elder Miao heard Yi Qing Luo's words, he sighed, "Since that's the case, then there's no other way. After all, you don't know that Secluded Palace's people will surround the Miao tribe tonight." Although his words sounded as if he was speaking up for Miao Yi, it was not a big deal. But when he listened carefully, this was obviously drawing hatred for Yi Qing Luo. After hearing Great Elder Miao's words, the Miao tribesmen were surrounded by the Palace of Darkness disciples and their fates were unknown. He would never understand Miao Yi's departure. Instead, he would constantly complain in his heart. No matter what the reason is. When the Miao tribe was in trouble, as the Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe, she had to be there. However, the Holy Maiden had abandoned the Miao tribe for the sake of her so-called friend. Was she still a qualified Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe? In the Holy Maiden's heart, only that so-called friend was the most important. Hence, after this thought was born in the hearts of the Miao clansmen, all their fury would be directed onto Yi Qing Luo. "Great Elder Miao, your words." Yan Shao Yi was instantly infuriated. Her face turned black as she pointed at Great Elder Miao and was about to scold him. Before he could finish howling, he was stopped by Yi Qing Luo. "A mere Miao tribe is not worthy of my attention." Yi Qing Luo was extremely arrogant as her brows were mixed with faint ridicule. "Let's go take a look at the Secluded Palace." Yi Qing Luo had long seen through Grand Elder Miao's tricks. But she was too lazy to care. To her, the Miao tribesmen were just outsiders. She didn't care how he thought about her, and she didn't want to care either. What she needed to do now was to stand on the side of Miao Yi's friend and protect the Miao tribe from being annihilated. That was enough. Yi Qing Luo and the rest didn't even bother to take a look at the Miao tribe's elders as they directly walked towards the direction of that huge magical beast. Coincidentally, after fourth elder Miao finished his question, at the instant when Yi Qing Luo and the rest left, he slowly raised his head. His vision seemed as though it was directed towards Yi Qing Luo and the rest's backs. But if one took a closer look, that vision went past Yi Qing Luo and the rest, staring straight at those people from the Secluded Palace. Finally, his vision seemed to have met with someone. Chapter 2949. Under the gaze of the Miao clansmen and the disciples of the Dark Abyss Palace, Yi Qing Luo and the rest slowly walked over. Mei viciously looked down at Yi Qing Luo from above, as if she was standing on a higher position and had many backers, so there was a kind of unbridled complacency. "Yi Qing Luo, you've got guts." Mei's sharp voice was filled with jealousy. "Come to think of it, you also know that the Miao tribe suffered such an undeserved disaster because of you, so you obediently came out to die. What else can she do besides throwing her life away?" Yan Zhenfei was also full of hatred. Even the veil could not conceal the viciousness on her face. Could it be that she still wants to rely on the Miao tribe to avoid our condemnation? Mei covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly. Because of her, the Miao tribe has suffered such an undeserved calamity and is facing the danger of being devoured by our palace of Yu Yu. Why would we help her? Both of their voices were deliberately spread out with their xian qi. Almost everyone at the entrance of the Miao tribe could hear it clearly. Immediately, these two people's words aroused the hatred in the hearts of countless Miao clansmen. Facing the encirclement of more than 1,000 people from the Palace of Abyss. In addition, there was an extremely ferocious-looking magical beast. These Miao tribesmen had personally witnessed the strength of the Palace of Darkness guards yesterday. If they resisted, it was like striking a rock with an egg. They were all extremely worried and frightened. They were afraid that the Palace of Darkness would destroy the Miao tribe and they would not be able to fight back. Now, under such a worrying and fearful situation, the people from secluded Darkness Palace had pointed out that their Miao tribe was totally implicated. It was entirely because of Yi Qing Luo that they were surrounded by secluded Darkness Palace. In his heart, a bellyful of hatred towards Yi Qing Luo surged up. Immediately, the Miao tribesmen who did not even dare to let out a fart under the suppression of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. At this moment, all of them were shouting for Yi Qing Luo to get out of the Miao tribe. For a moment, the entire entrance of the Miao tribe was in an uproar. Mei and Yan Xiaoyi looked at each other and smiled. She felt that with just a few words, she was able to stir up so many people, causing them to burst out with complaints towards Yi Qing Luo. They felt extremely proud of themselves. Gossip had always been the sharpest weapon. Once a person was corroded by rumors, and it became more and more intense, it could completely crush a person into utter disarray. They wanted to make use of the Miao clansmen to make Yi Qing Luo feel the pressure from the rumors. But, they seemed to have miscalculated. Facing thousands of people's accusations and curses, Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't change at all. Even the group of people behind her were calm and did not seem to be able to stir up any waves. The Miao tribesman's reprimand was like a punch hitting cotton, soft and soft. It made them feel suffocated in their chests, and they couldn't get it out no matter what. And the group of them didn't seem to care at all, completely unaffected by the numerous criticisms of the Miao tribesmen. This caused Mei and Yan Jinfei's expressions to freeze bit by bit. Useless trash. A cold shout came from behind the two of them. Their faces paled, and they immediately bowed and nodded respectfully, Second Palace Master. Behind the two of them, a slim figure slowly walked over. That person was covered by a black veil, revealing only a pair of beautiful fox-like eyes. Chapter 2950. This sentence was filled with a dignified roar. Instantly, it made those noisy Miao tribesmen quieten down. The entire Miao tribe's entrance was within 100 miles radius. Only the rustling sound of the wind blowing past the trees could be heard. The air in the entire space seemed to have condensed into a layer of frost. All the Miao tribesmen felt their bodies shivering slightly, from the bottom of their feet to the top of their heads, surging with traces of chilliness. Second Palace Lord stood on that huge magical beast's head. Her posture was extremely high. Her bewitching cold eyes had turned into a sharp blade, ruthlessly slicing Yi Qing Luo. However, everyone's hearts were filled with anxiety and fear, while their nerves were stretched taut. Meeting with Second Palace Lord's icy cold gaze, Yi Qing Luo's face didn't show any signs of panic, not even a little bit of fear. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as her slender fingers gently brushed past her lower jaw, curling it over her shoulder, a wisp of fine black hair, twined around her fingertips. Following that, her pink lips curled up into a sweet smile. That devastatingly beautiful face gave off a suffocating charm, which was enough to charm all living beings. Every action, every smile, and every frown. As compared to the half-concealed Second Palace Lord, she was obviously more dazzling. Second Palace Lord's eyes were suffused with a poisonous chill. She coldly swept past Yi Qing Luo's face, which made one want to destroy it, as she gritted her teeth and gave a cold harumph. Yi Qing Luo, do you think that just by casually flirting, someone will save you? Or, will the people from the Palace of Darkness show mercy? What a pity, our Palace of Darkness has no lack of women. Jealousy caused second palace lord's fox-like eyes to be tainted with a malicious glint. Even her voice became sharp and unpleasant. This palace lord doesn't have the mood to waste time with you here. If you don't surrender, this palace lord will give the order to attack and occupy the Meow tribe. Giggle giggle. A low laughter spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips. The young lady covered her mouth, her eyebrows curved into a crescent, bewitching like a blooming rose, making one unable to shift their gaze away. I also have to say, second palace lord, it's such a pity. The girl's voice was unique and sweet, like pearls falling on a plate, pleasing to the ear to the extreme. Whatever the Palace of Darkness does to the Meow tribe has nothing to do with me. The people of the Meow tribe have nothing to do with me. I don't care if you want to kill or torture them. Yiqing Luo's words were very light and her calm voice didn't reveal any excess emotions. Yiqing Luo's sentence had indeed aroused the Meow clansman's endless fury. Yiqing Luo. Do you have to be so shameless? If you hadn't implicated the Meow tribe, how would our Meow tribe have suffered such an undeserved calamity? You still dare to say that it has nothing to do with us. It's all your fault. You are the one who harmed the Meow tribe. Shouldn't you bear this responsibility? How dare you say that you treat the Saintess as a friend? If you really treat the Saintess as a friend, then you should stand up and sacrifice yourself to protect the Meow tribe. You want to escape by yourself and let us pay with our lives for the grudge between you and the Palace of Darkness. Don't you dare. Numerous grievances, as well as exploding anger, almost overturned the Meow tribe. The Meow clansman's fear towards death made them speak without thinking. Towards all the abuse and questioning, Yiqing Luo totally didn't treat it as anything, as though she turned a deaf ear to it, unmoved. Chapter 29:51. Motive. Second palace mistress chuckled as she mumbled this word. That pair of seductive eyes curved even more. My motive is only you. Her voice wasn't considered soft. It drifted melodiously above the entire Meow tribe entrance. Yiqing Luo, take a good look at this face of mine. Second palace mistress leapt upwards and in a blink of an eye, an afterimage flashed past and she had already appeared 2 steps away from Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo didn't move at all. What came towards her was second palace mistress's powerful profound energy. Like a bone-cutting sharp blade, it slashed towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly but she didn't intentionally evade. Just as this burst of profound energy was about to land on Yiqing Luo's face, Yiqing Luo's eyelashes suddenly drew a silhouette of flowing light. Like a ripple on water, layer after layer of ripples appeared in midair. Second palace mistress's profound energy. It hit on that ripple. Instantly, it turned into nothingness. The surrounding, violent aura was like a whirlwind, lingering between the two of them. Like the tumbling huge waves in the vast sea, constantly stirring up the most ferocious whirlwind. In this whirlwind, the two of them who stood facing each other, had no change in their expressions. Second palace mistress's eyes were seductive, but revealed an obvious murderous intent. She sneered as she used her hand to slowly remove the black veil which was covering her face, revealing that face which Yiqing Luo was extremely familiar with. Second palace mistress's red lips curled, as her slender fingers caressed that smooth fair face bit by bit, as she asked with a low laugh, Yiqing Luo, do you still recognize me? This face, Yiqing Luo had coincidentally taken a look at it before. At that time, her reaction was that she felt that she had seen wrongly. But now, this face was revealed in front of her without any concealment. This confirmed that she had not seen wrongly right from the start. This second palace mistress's face was Yiqing Qian's. That face which was exactly the same as Yiqing Qian, without any difference. Especially when he heard the second palace master's question. For a moment, Yiqing Luo really thought that the person in front of her was the same Yiqing Qian who had been tortured into a meat patty by her when the dark forces invaded the West Continent. However, it was only for a moment. Yiqing Luo immediately rejected her own thoughts. Because, although the person in front of him had the exact same face as Yiqing Qian, but whether it was the tone of voice or the temperament, it was totally not the aura that a woman like Yiqing Qian could have. Moreover, according to the first time he fought with the deputy palace master during the Holy Maiden selection ceremony of the Miao tribe, the second palace master didn't know her at all. And his tone was completely different. What? Seeing that sister is still alive, shouldn't you be a little happier? Second palace mistress curled her red lips, fully releasing the charm of Yiqing Qian's face. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she suddenly had another guess in her mind. She pondered for a moment, then stared at the vice palace master and smiled tentatively. Is that so? If you really are my good sister, I will naturally be happy. Sure enough, when he heard her words, the assistant palace master's expression changed slightly. That pair of seductive beautiful eyes flickered a few times. Yiqing Luo was even more certain of her own thoughts as she used her hand to support her lower jaw, putting on an astonished look. I've heard that the dark forces have a certain sacred technique which looks exactly the same as my good sister. Seeing it today, it's indeed so. Chapter 2952. This palace lord is indeed not Yiqing Qian. Second palace lord admitted readily as she raised her brows frivolously, but this body, this face, is indeed Yiqing Qian's. Early on, Wolf Saint-Fe treated Yiqing Qian specially. Yiqing Luo roughly guessed it. After all, Wolf Saint-Fe's expression towards Yiqing Qian was really not love. Later on, she heard that Yiqing Qian was merely a substitute for Wolf Saint-Fe's moonlight. Yiqing Luo understood. But if she didn't remember wrongly, haven't Yiqing Qian's face and body been destroyed by me? That battle in the West Continent, Yiqing Luo had destroyed Yiqing Qian's face and even her body had become minced meat. Basically, she was no longer in human form. Wolf Saint-Fe actually had a way to use that broken body to revive the person in front of him. Dark secret arts, it's a darkness that you will never be able to imagine. Second palace lord's eyes were filled with delight. Yiqing Luo's vision swept past the second palace lord's face which was completely similar to Yiqing Qian's. So, you're the woman that Wolf Saint-Fe has been pining for, Fox Saint-Fe. That time, after Yiqing Qian joined the dark forces, her name was changed by the Wolf Saint Law to protect her who. Presumably, Wolf Saint-Fe had treated Yiqing Qian as a substitute right from the start. Second palace lord, who was also Fox Saint-Fe, curled her red lips as her fingers gently caressed her chin. That's right, this palace lord is Fox Saint-Fe. Yiqing Luo's eyes dimmed slightly. Indeed, this second palace lord was Wolf Saint-Fe who used the dark secret arts, using Yiqing Qian's body as a medium to revive Fox Saint-Fe. This kind of secret art is extremely evil. In her mind, Old Man Tsang's exclamation suddenly rang, forbidden secret arts, the reason why it's forbidden, is because this kind of taboo has already exceeded the limits of what this world can tolerate. Using forbidden secret arts, not only will it disturb the world's balance, it will also disturb the world's order. Using a forbidden secret skill requires the same price. Old Man Tsang let out a light sigh. Fox Saint technique should have died a long time ago, and his corpse might not even be complete. Wolf Saint technique used some sort of method to forcefully keep the soul of Fox Saint technique in order to find a perfect vessel to resurrect Fox Saint technique. But, to resurrect a dead person, this goes against the laws of nature. If the Fox sacred technique succeeds in resurrecting, the Wolf sacred technique will definitely pay the same price. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. In other words, the current wolf saint technique is trash. You can't say that. After all, the dark forces have already joined the palace of gloomy darkness. Old man Tsang answered very straightforwardly. The background of the Palace of Darkness is still unclear, but it should be said that they have a way to extend the life of the Wolf Saint technique. However, the only thing he could be sure of now was, the Wolf Saint Law's body was indeed not as good as before. Otherwise, why would the Wolf Saint technique be so in love with the Fox Saint technique, to the point where he could even disregard his own life? They would absolutely not let Fox Saint Law lead the people from Abyss Palace to deal with Yiqing Luo alone. Yiqing Luo. Seeing that Yiqing Luo didn't reply for a long time, Fox Saint Law's expression sunk a little, as he opened his mouth impatiently, although this palace lord isn't Yiqing Qian, but... Since this palace lord has taken over this body, then this body's hatred. Chapter 2953. Pfft. Yiqing Luo laughed out loud because of Fox Sacred Law's sentence. She laughed till her eyes were curved as she ridiculed, Fox Sacred Law, second palace mistress of secluded palace, trying to kill me and finding so many excuses, aren't you embarrassed? A cold glint flashed past Fox Sacred Law's eyes as she waved her hand and a 9-segment long whip swiftly appeared in her hands. Her bare hands were covered with moss as her eyes were filled with a cold glint as she gritted her teeth and shouted angrily, "Kill!" Following Fox Sacred Law's words, thousands of people from secluded palace started to raise their arms and shout loudly. So shocked that the Miao tribesmen started to tremble. "Spare us! Second palace mistress, we are not on the same side as that slut. Second palace mistress, you can do whatever you want to this slut, we are innocent." The Miao tribesmen continued to plead for mercy, but it didn't stop the secluded palace's disciples from shouting. On the contrary, it ignited their fighting spirit. These secluded palace's disciples had undergone a period of brainwashing in secluded palace. Toward secluded palace, they were completely obedient. Now looking at the slightly famous Miao tribesmen in North Wave continent, being so terrified and kept begging for mercy, they felt extremely complacent. And felt that joining secluded palace was indeed the right choice. Grand Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao walked towards Yiqing Luo in quick steps as they looked at the chaotic scene. "Miss Yi, if secluded palace really came for you, you should bear this responsibility." Yiqing Luo had been concentrating on Fox Sacred Law's actions. Suddenly, she felt 2 bursts of energy attacking her from behind. Especially after hearing the shameless words spoken by the great Elder Miao. Yiqing Luo's gaze turned cold. She wanted to send the 2 sneak-attacking people flying with a backhand kick. But at the same time, the 9-segment long whip in Fox Sacred Law's hands had already turned into an afterimage as it swept towards Yiqing Luo's face. Attacks from the front and back. This made Yiqing Luo's expression sunk instantly. She swiftly changed her footwork and was about to leap forward to let these 2 waves of attacks collide with her. But just at this moment, a tender voice was heard from behind. "Qing Luo, just focus on dealing with the secluded palace. This group of fools, let me teach them what brains are." Immediately following that, Yiqing Luo sensed that the 2 bursts of energy which were closing in on her had been blocked by a sickle which was flickering with black rays. Yan Xiaoyi's pretty face was filled with coldness. "You tolerate them a lot on account of Yi's face, but I won't. This group of scum, I'll hack one of them to death with one saber strike." The moment Yan Xiaoyi moved, Qiao Jin and Peach naturally followed suit. For a moment, the scene became extremely chaotic. Yiqing Luo did not turn back. Behind her was a group of brothers who had fought alongside her. She would definitely protect him well. Yiqing Luo's eyes were icy cold as her thoughts moved. A huge black leopard howled at the sky. When those thick limbs landed on the ground, they smashed 4 huge holes. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere. It shocked the secluded Darkness Palace disciples who were surrounding him, and they couldn't help but take a few steps back. What are you afraid of? It was just a leopard. Can it be as powerful as our second palace lord's blood sacrifice? After the secluded Darkness Palace's disciples saw that black leopard, they swallowed a mouthful of saliva. As though they were convincing themselves, and also as though they were convincing others. Blood Sacrifice was the name of that dinosaur-like magical beast which Mei and Yen Jinfei were standing on. Chapter 2954. Don't be afraid. Let's attack directly. The Nether Palace's disciples were ignited with fighting spirit. All of them raised their weapons up high as they charged forward once again. In their eyes, no matter how powerful Yi Qing Luo and the others were, they were merely a few people. As for them, there were several thousands of them. And they were the Nether Palace's disciples whose power was close to the Imperial Palace. Those Miao people were already scared out of their wits as they curled up on one side, shivering. What they wanted to deal with was merely Yi Qing Luo and the few others. Thousands of people, how could they not deal with a few kids? Moreover, they still had the secret weapon from the Nether Palace. Fox Saint Technique's eyes were filled with a venomous glint as she stared fixedly at Yi Qing Luo's unperturbed expression, and then looked at the surrounding secluded palace's disciples, with a look of high morale. Her eyes were filled with pride. Just a silly leopard, and you want to turn the situation around. She laughed coldly as her lips twitched. Yi Qing Luo, no matter if it's Yi Qing Qian's hatred or the hatred between you and the dark forces, today I will avenge them all. Her long whip coiled, totally not showing any mercy. The sound of the long whip sweeping through the air was piercingly cold. It was maddening. If one leopard isn't enough, then how about adding another bird? Facing Fox Saint Fa's provocation, Yi Qing Luo didn't have any intention of being moved. Her tone was very calm. Her eyes were sparkling like stars, extremely resplendent. But, if one took a closer look, one could tell that under this resplendent, there was a hidden killing intent. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold as she cried out a name, Qi Yen. Swoosh, a piercing sound pierced through the sky as it reverberated over. Immediately following that was a golden flowing light which dazzled one's eyes. On the horizon, the scorching flames enveloped everything. It also caused the torches in the Nether Palace's disciples' hands to dim down. Hua hua hua, another piercing sound in the air, bringing along a whirlwind-like airwave. Everyone's gazes, at this instance, were all attracted by the shadow on the horizon. The golden flames revolved as it scattered a dazzling ray. Every phoenix feather seemed as though it was bathed in fire, bathing in that flickering flame. Swoosh, there was another sound. The huge flaming thing in the sky spread its wings. The phoenix feathers were flowing with light and vibrant colors. It's a phoenix. No. That's not a phoenix, it's a vermilion bird. One of the 4 sacred beasts, the vermilion bird. Vermilion bird. How could there be a vermilion bird? The appearance of red flame. Not only were the Palace of Darkness disciples shocked. Even the tribesmen of the Miao tribe were so shocked by the blazing flames that they could only open their mouths in disbelief. Do you think this is enough? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows slightly, smiling quietly and elegantly. Fox Saint Law's pupils instantly constricted. The Fox Saint Law raised his head and stared at Qi Yen. Don't you feel that I look very familiar? Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth with a light smile, as she asked the question that Fox Saint Fa had in his heart. How could this vermilion bird not be familiar? Ever since the 4 great ancient sacred beasts fell into a deep slumber, The King of Darkness had always been searching for a way to awaken the 4 saint beasts. Furthermore, he wanted to form a contract with the 4 great sacred beasts. The first target that the King of Darkness had set his eyes on was Vermilion Bird. Because Vermilion Bird's flame was totally different from other fire-attributed magical beasts. Vermilion Bird was a flame which contained light and dark elements. It was most suitable to be used by the dark forces to control people's hearts. Chapter 2955. Although Fox Sacred Law had died early, but she had participated in many activities regarding the Vermilion Bird. Basically, she was certain that this Vermilion Bird belonged to the dark forces. Why? Would it become Yi Qing Luo's war pet? Yi Qing Luo saw Fox Sacred Law's shocked and puzzled expression and didn't open her mouth to explain. She only raised her head and squinted her eyes as she stared at Qi Yan and said calmly, "I'll leave these people to you and Shi Ju." Clang! A cry resounded through the 9 heavens. Qi Yan's arrogant voice followed, "Just these scums, you still need this sacred beast to make a move. Ugly freak, you're too weak. I asked you to make a move and you still have so much bullsh**. Do you want me to seal you in the pet space before you're satisfied?" Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes. Qi Yan indeed quietened down. Yi Qing Luo retracted her gaze and returned it to Fox Sacred Law. Fox Sacred Law's fingers clenched tightly, apparently infuriated by Yi Qing Luo's provocation. Her eyes were scarlet red as she growled sinisterly, "This palace mistress wants to see how 2 magical beasts are going to turn the tables." She didn't place her hopes on those Nether Palace disciples. She directly waved the 9-segment whip in her hand towards a direction behind her. "All of you, attack." Rumble, an earth-shattering loud sound rang from the direction where Fox Sacred Law waved her whip. Immediately following that, puppets dressed in Nether Palace's guard uniforms swarmed over. Dead corpse puppets. Yi Qing Luo's eyes dimmed as she speedily retreated a few steps. There were at least 100 over of those dead corpse puppets. No matter how fast Yi Qing Luo's speed was, they had already surrounded her in a swift speed. After the secret of the dead corpse puppets was exposed, the people from Nether Palace still dared to take out the dead corpse puppets unscrupulously. They had long decided to massacre the Miao tribe, not leaving anyone alive, to protect the secret of these semi-finished products. Second Palace Mistress. You're incredible. Yan Zhenfei leapt down from the magical beast's body as she looked at Fox Sacred Law with admiration and respect. Mei, who was standing by the side, also tried to flatter her. "That little scoundrel still wants to hoot with our second palace mistress, just based on her. She's just a little slut who relies on men." The second palace lord raised his head arrogantly, looking high and mighty, as if he didn't want to talk to mortals. However, there was a hint of pride in his eyes. Obviously, the flattery of these 2 made her feel happy both physically and mentally. As Yan Zhenfei sucked up to him, he looked excitedly in the direction the undead corpse puppets were heading in. He could not help but laugh out loud. "Ha ha ha. Yi Qing Luo, this is our Palace of Seclusion's strongest weapon. Using it to end you is considered as giving you face." Mei's eyes were also fixed on that side. On seeing Yi Qing Luo, who was surrounded by the dead corpse puppets and totally unable to be seen, her face was filled with a sinister smile. Fox Saintess cast a sidelong glance at these 2 women who she looked down on. She asked indifferently, "It looks like the enmity between you and her isn't small." Yan Zhenfei's eyes were filled with viciousness. "That scoundrel destroyed my family. If not for the Holy Wolf technique taking me in, I would have been killed by that scoundrel." She was filled with resentment, but she did not notice it. After she finished her sentence, a cold glint flashed past Fox Saintess's eyes. This glint of cold glint was noticed by Mei, who always had many thoughts in her mind. But she had no intention to remind her. Chapter 2956. Snatcher Man. Fox Sacred Law's interest was piqued by May's words. May clenched her fists tightly as she gritted her teeth and stared at Yi-Ching Luo's direction. Right. So I hate her so much that I can't wait to disfigure her and throw her in front of that man, to let that man abandon her. Fox Sacred Law squinted her bewitching beautiful eyes as her vision landed on May's young and charming face, as she stared deeply for a long time. Suddenly, she laughed softly. This palace mistress is very curious. What kind of man is he, to be able to make you blame Yi-Ching Luo, instead of that man? Why should I blame that man? May's eyes flickered slightly as she asked in puzzlement. If that man really loves you, why would he be snatched away by other women? Fox Sacred Law brushed her long hair as she gave a fox-like bewitching smile, just like Wolf's Sacred Law, because he loves this palace mistress, so no matter which woman appears, she will not be able to snatch him away from this palace mistress's hands. Although Fox Sacred Law's voice sounded very calm, as though it was an ordinary chat. But if one listened carefully, one would be able to hear the thick thread in it. Moreover, her gaze seemed to be drifting towards Yan Zhenfei. The meaning behind her words was very obvious. But Yan Zhenfei apparently didn't realize this point. She even nodded her head in agreement. Right. If it's true love, it will absolutely not be snatched away by other women. Wolf's Sacred Law's heart towards Second Palace Mistress, we can all see it clearly. There is absolutely no one who snatched Wolf's Sacred Law from Second Palace Mistress's hands. As Yan Zhenfei spoke, she suddenly felt that something was amiss. She took a careful look at Fox Sacred Law. But she met with Fox Sacred Law's icy cold face, as though it could freeze into frost at any moment. Her heart thumped hard. Could it be that she said something wrong? She was just going along with Second Palace Mistress's words. May's eyes were extremely cold as she hid the smile on her lips, thinking silently, idiot. Although, on the surface, Second Palace Mistress didn't love Wolf's Sacred Law. But Wolf's Sacred Law had loved Second Palace Mistress for so many years, and had guarded Second Palace Mistress for so many years, and in order to revive Second Palace Mistress, he had done so many things. Even if Second Palace Mistress didn't like Wolf's Sacred Law. However, the Second Palace Master was certain that the Wolf Saint Law was hers. Yan Zhenfei knew very well how she got her position as the emissary of the Gloomy Palace. Yan Zhenfei had seduced the Wolf Saint technique in exchange for it. For the Second Palace Master, Yan Zhenfei was her man's bed-warming maid. Facing Yan Zhenfei, the Second Palace Lord naturally did not have a good expression. However, Yan Zhenfei did not think that this was a big problem. Moreover, it was normal for a man to have 3 or 4 wives. She was so young, yet she followed an old man like Wolf Saint Law. Not competing with the Second Palace Master for the position of the first wife was already a good deed to the Second Palace Master. Naturally, he didn't think too much about other things. Fox Saint Technique realized that his words did not alarm Yan Zhenfei. Instead, she appeared to be fearless. She felt that Yan Zhenfei was showing off her relationship with the Wolf Saint Technique. Immediately Fox Saint Law's face turned cold. Since Envoy Yin feels that what this Palace Lord said is right, then now, this Palace Lord orders you to bring along these Palace Lord's guards to capture Yi-Ching Luo alive and bring her back to Secluded Palace. Are you willing to accept this? Yan Zhenfei's face instantly turned pale. She almost collapsed onto the ground. Chapter 2957. Emissary Yen, the Second Palace Lord only gave you this mission because he thinks highly of you. Don't let him down. May fanned the flames. But May's words had just landed. The Fox Sacred Technique's seductive gaze had already landed on May. Since you have such a close relationship with Emissary Yen, you should accompany her. May's smile froze. no matter what the two of them were thinking. In the end, they could only listen to Fox's sacred technique's command as they charged towards the direction of the 100 over puppets. With these 100 or so undead corpse puppets, no matter what, they should be safe. Mei and Yan Jinfei were terrified of Yi Qing Luo's mysterious power. They could only use this excuse to pacify their emotions. The two of them stood on the left and right as they neared the puppets. An endless rotting stench entered their nostrils. They couldn't help but furrow their brows. But in order to ascertain whether Yi Qing Luo was alive or dead, they endured the rotting stench as they probed their senses. Usually, 20 to 30 puppets were disguised as the guards of Secluded Palace. Secluded Palace intentionally used a fragrance bag to conceal the stench on the puppets. But today, 100 over puppets appeared in a pile. The rotting stench on them couldn't be concealed at all. Mei and Yan Jinfei, who were extremely concerned about their looks, naturally couldn't stand this stench. Even when they released their senses to sense Yi Qing Luo's aura, their brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. The perception of the two was constantly magnifying and spreading. Until they searched through the 100 over puppets, but they didn't sense any other aura other than the puppets. Both of their eyes were filled with ecstasy. There was no trace of Yi Qing Luo's aura. That meant, Yi Qing Luo was dead. Dead. Ha. Ha ha ha. Mei couldn't help but burst out laughing as her face was twisted with ecstasy. Yi Qing Luo is dead. She must be dead. Yan Jinfei recalled Yi Qing Luo's craftiness, and although her eyes were filled with joy, but she still looked around vigilantly. Let's see the corpse first. Yi Qing Luo, that slut, is very crafty. Yi Qing Luo's aura was totally gone, and this made these two people who hated Yi Qing Luo so ecstatic that they totally disregarded the rotten stench from those dead corpses. One on the left and one on the right, the two of them pushed aside the undead corpse puppets and rushed to the center. The order that the corpse puppets received was only to kill Yi Qing Luo. Yan Jinfei and Mei also had the aura of Gloomy Palace. The corpse puppet didn't take the two of them seriously. Therefore, the two of them easily squeezed through the undead corpse puppet's encirclement. When the two of them were completely shrouded by the rancid odor, the encirclement was empty, causing them to be dumbfounded. Yan Jinfei's eyes widened and she swallowed hard. The uneasiness in her heart was magnified. Corpses, corpses, why are there no corpses? Impossible. If that scoundrel wasn't here, then what were the guards attacking? Mei also shook her head in disbelief. But no matter how much they looked around, they could not see anything. They didn't even see that fiery figure. And those undead corpse puppets were still squeezing towards the center. Chapter 2958. It's Yi Qing Luo's remnant profound energy. Mei was the first to detect the target of the corpse puppets. That remnant profound energy was right at the place where they were standing. Mei immediately pulled Yan Jinfei away as she retreated a few steps backwards. That immortal chief fluttered in the white muslin dress as it crashed onto the puppet's body, instantly being stained by the corroded corpse fluid on the puppet's body. What followed was an extremely thick rotting smell. Mei's expression instantly turned black as something was churning in her stomach. Whereas Yan Jinfei, who was flung away by Mei, also staggered forward due to her sudden action. Just like that, he threw himself onto a puppet. Yan Jinfei raised her head in a fluster. She met with the puppet's pair of empty and soulless eyes, which were so dark that there wasn't a single reflection. Ah! Yan Jinfei screamed as she pushed the puppet away in terror. However, those puppets were indestructible corpses to begin with. Yan Jinfei's push not only didn't push the puppet away. Instead, she was forced to retreat several steps by the puppet's strength. Looking at the surrounding numerous puppets brandishing their claws, raising the weapons in their hands as they slashed down directly. Yan Zhenfei cried for help in terror. Sister May, save me. Save me. He he he. A crisp laughter suppressed Yan Zhenfei's cry for help. After she heard that laughter clearly, Yan Zhenfei's pupils dilated as she stared at the direction where the voice came from. She saw a young lady in a fiery red dress floating in mid-air above the puppet's corpse as she leisurely smiled faintly at her. You. Yan Zhenfei was in disbelief. It's not like I've never dealt with these corpse puppets before. Yiqing Luo smiled enchantingly as her tone was filled with ridicule. This kind of defective product, you still have the cheek to bring it in front of me. Apparently, Secluded Darkness Palace's plan to attack the Miao clan wasn't premeditated, but it was a sudden move. There wasn't much planning at all. So she directly brought her men and charged over. These corpse puppets were on a totally different level from the guards at the Sacred Maiden selection ceremony yesterday, as well as the 5 Secluded Darkness Palace guards they met in the underground tunnel. Secluded Darkness had said it before. Those guards from the Palace of Darkness were only half-finished products. In that case, these were even inferior to semi-finished products, which meant that they were just abandoned defective products. Fox St. Law was really impatient. He brought along these defective goods and rushed to the Miao tribe to encircle and annihilate them. This knowledge made Yiqing Luo even more certain of one thing. The Miao tribe indeed had a spy. They took the opportunity when the Sacred Maiden, the former Sacred Maiden and Dmo Xian were not around to launch a joint attack. In other words, the secluded palace had basically confirmed that Dmo Xian had no way to rush over to join in the battle, so they hurriedly brought along this batch of defective goods to attack. This thought made Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. For things like Miao Gu, Yiqing Luo didn't know much. There was no way to know if the Miao tribe spy could detect that Dmo Xian was poisoned. Previously, Yiqing Luo had always thought that the people from Secluded Darkness Palace's motive was her. However, after seeing these defective puppets, Yiqing Luo could roughly guess, the main motive of Secluded Darkness Palace was to ascertain where Dmo Xian was. If they could take this chance to deal with Dmo Xian, that would naturally be the best. Even if they really couldn't deal with Dmo Xian, taking down one Yiqing Luo would be a gain for Secluded Darkness Palace. At the very least, they would swallow up the Miao tribe and make use of them. Chapter 2959. She was unable to ascertain if the other party knew that Dmo Xian was poisoned. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to delay any further. She leapt up and the feather fan in her hands drew out several strong winds. Following that, numerous demonic red rays shot out from the red feather fan. Like thin red threads, they spread out to form a huge net, enveloping the corpses and puppets within. Mei and Yan Zhenfei, who were surrounded by numerous dead corpse puppets, their expressions turned uglier by the minute. They struggled with all their might, trying to escape from the encirclement of the dead corpse puppets. But Yiqing Luo's remaining profound energy made the dead corpse puppets completely lose control. It was easy for Mei and Yan Zhenfei to enter, but difficult to get out. Shouldn't you feel honored to die under the weapons that you're so proud of? Yiqing Luo looked at the two of them who were struggling desperately, as she couldn't help but ridicule them. Yiqing Luo. You scoundrel. Scoundrel. I won't die, I won't. Yan Zhenfei screamed in rage. By now, how would Yan Zhenfei still not understand? Right from the start, Yiqing Luo didn't reveal herself, intentionally luring them into the encirclement of the dead corpse puppets. Then she used her remaining profound energy to attract the dead corpse puppets. Because of the command, she totally disregarded the both of them, and directly attacked. This move of killing with a borrowed knife, Yiqing Luo used it flawlessly. Yan Zhenfei felt an endless rotting stench, as though it was going to swallow her up. She was terrified as she screamed, "Second Palace Lord! Please stop the command! Stop!" The only plan now was to make Second Palace Lord stop the command to the dead corpse puppets. But, no matter how Yen Jinfei screamed, from the start till the end, Second Palace Lord hadn't said a single word. Ah! Yen Jinfei's screams were buried by the sound of the puppets colliding. And then there was no more sound. Even Mei, who hadn't made a single sound, had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, on the magical beast named Blood Sacrifice, which was like a dinosaur, Fox Saint Fe was leaning on the soft mat, as his brows creased tightly. A cold voice rang beside his ear. "What do you think about this lass called Yi Qing Luo?" That voice was like a venomous snake, so cold that it sent shivers down one's spine. However, the 4 disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were protecting the Fox Saint technique were still standing straight, as if they hadn't heard anything. In fact, only Huxing Fa alone could hear that cold voice. To be able to catch the eye of the Palace Master, there is naturally a reason for the Palace Master. Fox Saint Law replied indifferently. At such a young age, she has such a deep mind. She's not an easy girl to deal with. The cold voice sneered, "No wonder the Palace Master asked me to come here." Fox Saint Law squinted her beautiful eyes, seeming to be a little indignant. Why is it that everyone says that the little scoundrel is powerful, but this palace mistress doesn't think that there's anything to fear about her? Towards Yi Qing Luo, it wasn't only because of Yi Qing Qian's body, but also the hatred towards Yi Qing Luo. She herself had an unexplainable hatred towards Yi Qing Luo. Do you really think that this move of borrowing a knife to kill is just luck? The gloomy and cold voice is obviously jealous of the Fox Holy technique, a little cold. Fox Saint Law frowned. "Tell this palace mistress, if it's not luck, then what is it? If it wasn't for the fact that she understands your character, would she be able to guess that you would push those 2 trash out to die?" The gloomy and cold voice had a rare interest, as it really started to explain. Chapter 2960. And this interest made Fox Saint Law even more jealous. That lass's acuity is extremely strong. From the moment you let those defective products attack her, she must have thought of a plan. She also knows the characters of you and the 2 abandoned pawns very well. She knows that when she is in trouble, Yen Jinfei and Mei, the 2 abandoned pawns, will come out to mock her. She also knows what you are thinking. The gloomy cold voice was mixed with a hint of laughter. It was the kind of excited laughter that one's blood was boiling after meeting a prey. Even if it was Fox Saint Law. Under this strange gloomy cold laughter, she couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine. She curled her fingers tightly. Her arrogant mentality made her unwilling to admit her fear towards the gloomy cold voice. She forced herself to stand up straight and gave a disdainful harumph. This palace mistress doesn't believe that scoundrel has such a scheming mind. It's just that her luck is a little better and she's relying on the backing of the overlord. The gloomy cold voice didn't add any more words towards Fox Saint Law's strong support. Instead, it minded its own business and started talking about Yi Qing Luo, that lass's actions, although it looks very simple, but in actual fact, to be like her, to borrow a knife to kill someone, and to borrow it so perfectly, even you, Second Palace Mistress, can't do it. The gloomy cold voice disregarded Fox Saint Law's arrogant words. Once again, it praised Yi Qing Luo. This kind of action was a heavy slap on Fox Saint Law's face. And now, it was using Fox Saint Law to compare with Yi Qing Luo. Thinking that Fox Saint Law couldn't be compared to Yi Qing Luo. This kind of words fell into the arrogant Fox Saint Law's ears, and the disgust towards Yi Qing Luo in his heart grew even more. And his disdain towards Yi Qing Luo grew even more. Don't be unconvinced. The The gloomy cold voice gave a few cold laughs. These 100 over puppets, although they are all defective products, but after all there are quite a lot of them. Under the condition of not hurting a single puppet, leaving behind a strand of profound chi, and speedily getting away from the puppet's encirclement. To restrain those puppets. To be able to do this, not only does one need to be extremely fast, one also must be able to control one's profound energy freely and have 100% confidence. She wants to leave the encirclement of the puppets while holding her breath without anyone noticing, and she also wants to control the remaining profound energy. Let me ask you, Second Palace Master, are you able to do it? At this point, the cold voice paused and threw out a rhetorical question. The question caused Ling Hu Xingfa's face to turn pale. After the 2 chess pieces fell into the trap she set up, she used the dead corpse puppet's unwillingness to give up until they reached their goal. She ordered the dead corpse puppets to encircle the 2 chess pieces. It's also very difficult to control this. This girl is really an interesting prey. I can't wait to bring this prey home and teach Teacher Zhou a good lesson. Stop your wishful thinking. Fox St. Law's eyes were dark and ruthless. Her seductive expression no longer existed, and her eyes were filled with jealousy and hatred. She is someone that the palace lord has taken a fancy to. You dare to snatch her from the palace lord? The gloomy cold voice didn't say another word. Fox St. Law gave a cold laugh as she squinted her beautiful eyes. That scoundrel has been described by you to be so mysterious. This palace lord would like to try how powerful that scoundrel is. Fox St. Law gave a cold harumph as a powerful profound energy fluctuation exploded from her body. Chapter 2961. Yi Qing Luo was on high alert as she surveyed the surroundings, releasing her senses. In his mind, Old Man Song's voice was very anxious. What a dense evil energy. Although it was only for an instant. I can be sure that it came from the Earth Realm, from the Hell Palace. From Old Man Song's explanation, Yi Qing Luo knew. The Hell Palace was an evil palace in the upper realm. The Underworld Palace, as its name suggested, was a place known as Hell on Earth. The people inside were basically not human anymore. They had all cultivated evil arts and turned into monsters that were neither human nor ghost. Compared to the small forces outside of the upper realm like the dark forces, it was even more terrifying. After all, the Underworld Palace was filled with a bunch of lunatics who researched all sorts of evil arts. A bunch of madmen who didn't care about their lives at all. It could be said that the people of the Earth domain would tremble in fear when the Underworld Palace was mentioned. No one dared to provoke the Underworld Palace. No one was willing to provoke the Underworld Palace. Who would dare to provoke someone who didn't want to live? After Yi Qing Luo heard all these, the expression on her face congealed. Hell manner. Did someone from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness invite a madman from the Underworld Palace to help? We still do not know what the power behind the secluded Palace of Tenebrous Palace is. Are they hired as helpers, or are they in cahoots with the Underworld Palace? All of these are possible. Old Man Song's tone was extremely heavy. Girl, if the people from the Underworld Palace make a move, if you can escape, it's best to escape as much as possible. Old Man Song added another sentence in the end. To be able to make Old Man Song say the word escape. From this, it could be seen exactly how powerful that so-called Underworld Palace was. Yi Qing Luo sensed the surroundings for a long time. He didn't sense anything strange at all. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo's body moved. Her strong sense of perception allowed her to evade swiftly. A powerful gust of wind exploded from the place where she had just been standing. The terrifying chi waves surged like a tide. The surrounding Miao tribesmen were so terrified that they screamed out loud. Just how powerful was he? How profound was his profound rank to be able to create such a sensation? Vice Palace Master of Dark Abyss Palace, he was actually so powerful. The Miao tribesmen's fear towards the Palace of Darkness deepened once again. Compared to the shock and fear of the Miao tribesmen, Yiqing Luo's expression was extremely calm. Her cold eyes glanced sideways at the place where she had just been standing and the shockwave created. She narrowed her eyes and looked towards the direction where the profound energy had come from. Fox Saint Fa opened her arms and floated in midair. Her veil fluttered, and her profound energy continued to surge. Finally willing to take action yourself? Yiqing Luo sneered in ridicule. Fox Saint's eyes turned slightly cold, her exquisite and seductive face looked sinister and awe-inspiring. Yiqing Luo, it's your honor to die in this palace master's hands. As soon as he finished speaking, the Fox Saint technique flew out, her hands were soft and boneless, drawing out countless roaring profound energy. That profound energy cut through the air, extremely piercingly cold. When it was charging straight at them, Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly felt hot. She narrowed her eyes and carefully stared at the profound heart jade on the Fox Saint Fa's chest. A yellow-quality profound jade heart was releasing an extremely dazzling golden light. Yellow-grade profound heart jade. Yiqing Luo speedily retreated a few steps, as she gave a cold smile. She had not expected that after the Fox Saint technique took over Yiqing Qian's body, it also took over Yiqing Qian's profound heart jade. But this quality of profound heart jade. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.